Oh,
Okay. Hey, I missed
the
this one.
fake out of Welcome to the 2022 Five Reasons Sports NBA Free Agency Special. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. We are live. I have a entire cast of characters. We are going to have a rotating crew coming through here. We are in this for the long haul as the news hits. Before we dive into the panel, I introduce everybody. We talk about what's been percolating behind the scenes with this Kevin Durant noise. Do want to start out by shouting out some of the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. The first being Biscayne Bay Brewing, the official brew of the Miami Heat, the Miami Marlins, the Five Reasons Sports Network, the Tropical Bay IPA, the Marlins Lager, some really big time favorites, the Miami Pale Ale. Ask for it by name when you're at your local spots. You can find it at Heat games. There's always long lines to get it. Y'all know it's good. Ask for it by name at your local spots. Again, that's Biscayne Bay Brewing. Support Miami local. And we got another sponsor coming for you, and that's Mark Brown PA, helping you build a better future with the right planning, whether it's estate planning, you want to make sure that your finances are set as a single individual, as somebody with a family, you want to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row so that if something unfortunate were to happen, your family could be taken care of and have your assets to them as soon as possible so that they would feel supported. You need somebody to help you along in that process, just with general questions related to any legal matters. You want to reach out to Mark Brown PA. You get a free case evaluation if you mention Five Reasons Sports Network, 954-566-5678. Again, for a free case evaluation, Mark Brown PA, huge Heat fan, by the way, as well, 954-566-5678. All right, y'all.
That was very well done. By the way, he is a huge Heat fan because I just sent him that. And his first question to me is, when does KD get down here? So thanks for doing that, Greg, host. I could just let you host this thing.
No. You're much better at this than I am.
What the hell is Tony doing? What is he doing? Is that sage in his room?
I'm clearing as much negative energy out of the air that I can for Kevin Durant. Because we need as much space as humanly possible for him.
Thank you.
So I'm saging. Shout out Juan Carlo.
All right. Have we introduced everybody yet?
No, we hadn't got to that. I was shouting out the sponsors first in your honor.
I know you've learned well. That's nobody needs me anymore. All right. We got Timothy Bain there in the middle, right there in the center. Our guy from the Bahamas. He's our Bahamian correspondent. We got Alejandro Villegas Gomez. I never say the Gomez part. He is our producer extraordinaire. We got Marco Romo. Where the hell is Marco Romo? I never know, but he's right there down the bottom left. And we got Greg Sylvander, of course, co-host, and then Tony Schwartz is, I don't know what the hell Tony Schwartz is doing. So there you go. We're going to do a live show here. We're going to take you through the 6 o'clock. We're going to take you through the 6 o'clock, sort of start of free agency. It's a little different than it used to be. I remember 2016, literally 12:01. I passed out. I will say there were a couple drinks involved. I passed out after after being on Las Olas briefly, and by 12:03, Hassan Whiteside's agent had already texted me to give me the news, but I missed it by 2 minutes because that's when I heard the notification. Unfortunately, Pat Riley wishes he hadn't heard that notification either. But these things can happen very quickly, or they can be very slow. But this feels to me, guys, as we start here, and we will try to take comments. Super chat, we will get to every super chat comment. We are lining those up first. I'm royal in this show. I look a little different. I'm royal. We're going to get that super chat money in here so we can pay these guys, so we can pay Kevin Durant. But here's the thing about this, okay? There are some free agent seasons that are very quick, happens right away. And then there are others where the biggest star is not a free agent and it holds up the whole damn process. That's going to be this time, okay? It was also LeBron when he was a free agent in 2010 and 2014. Remember, everybody was sitting, waiting for the decision. You didn't know, okay? I mean, you had Bosh, but there was Joe Johnson. There was Eric Dampier was a premium free agent. Okay, you had all these guys, Carlos Boozer, Amari Stoudemire. Everybody was waiting on Bron, right? This time, everybody's waiting on KD. And the problem is that it's not even in KD's control completely. It's in the Nets' control. It's in the teams that he's dealing with. So let's pivot here. Let's go around the room a little bit, and let's start. Let's start with Tony on this one. Let's go to Tony since Tony's staging the room. Let me just ask this question flat out because I just checked with somebody because I know a lot of stuff's going out there. Would you trade Jimmy for him? Jimmy's not being traded for KD. I do not believe that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second best player in the world. You trade everything you have. Everything.
That's right. But let me ask you, okay, so let's get to the important question, okay? Kevin Durant has a relationship with Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
This is a little bit reminiscent to me of 2004 with the Shaq trade, where it was like, okay, Pat had a meeting with Jerry Buss. Originally, the meeting was about trying to get Pat to go to L.A., and then it was mentioned, well, Shaq might want out. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, well, who would Shaq want to play with? And there was only one answer, and it was Dwayne Wade. And so everybody else that Pat could trade, he traded. So I guess we'll go to this, and Tony, you can start. We'll pivot around the room. It feels to me like if you're going to get Kevin Durant, you have to have Bam Adebayo on the roster, right? So how exactly would this get done with? Because that's the guy I think he most would. He has a relationship with Jimmy. But that's the guy that I think he would most want to play with. That was his prodigy on the Olympic team.
Yeah, you bring up those Olympic comments about who he thought worked the hardest, and he brought up Bam Adebayo. To me, Kevin doesn't come to Miami unless it's to play with Bam and whoever the other pieces are around that. That's just who they are. And I tweeted earlier, I think that this could be one of the more complicated trades in NBA history. And as I look at the suitors that make this possible and all the picks that could go to the Nets and the players that the Nets would want to return, most of them are in rookie extensions. And if they're on a rookie extension max, Ben Simmons can't be there. So, if it's Jimmy, it's going to be a multi-teamer. There's just no other way around it. To make the money work, to make the deal work, it would have to be 4 or 5 teams, 3 teams at a minimum. And if it's Bam, it's definitely 3 or 4 or 5 teams. But yeah, no, Jimmy, I would send immediately in that deal. That gets done in a heartbeat. You get me the second best player in the world, and I figure out whatever the hell else it would take to make it happen.
We are not trading Lynette. I'm sorry. We're not trading Lynette. Aggressive insurance. Lynette stays. Where the hell? See, where did Marco go? Look at that. All right. So I was going to go to Marco next, but I'll pivot to Greg. Remember, super chats. We will absolutely take your money and take your question. That's how this thing is done. I'm with Lefty. Nothing is happening. It's okay. Marco's back. All right, but still, let me go to Greg, and then because I was going to go there, then we'll go to Marco. We'll go to Timmy here as we go forward. Watch with the Philippines. That's our second biggest audience outside the United States is the Philippines. Thanks, Bo, for that. We very much appreciate all of you there. All right, Greg, let's go to it then. Organizationally, okay. He's a top 3 player in the world. He has been for the last 10 years. This is what Pat does. This is not a whale. This is not an orca. This is the whole damn ocean. They went all in on LeBron in 2010. They basically wasted 2 years of Dwayne's prime. I mean, if Lamar Odom had signed the contract, maybe they wouldn't have, but they basically wasted 2 years of Dwayne's prime for the shot at LeBron James. So anybody who thinks that they won't take some chances or wait something out for the prospect of Kevin Durant, in my mind, is insane. Okay. Well, I know KD's older than LeBron was. He's had more injuries, obviously significant injuries than LeBron did, but I just, Pat will give up on getting the player to marginally improve this team to do this. This is, as Brian Windhorst said, and we agreed, the Godfather move, right? Like you just do this and then you fill in the pieces. I texted to somebody and I said, Bam, and they said he'll trade Bam if he has to. And I said, okay. And he says, and then I said, how do they fill out the roster? And he goes, you fucking figure it out. They'll figure it out. Okay. Right. That's what they do. Greg, go.
So this is the thing. Like, you're right. They're going to go all in on this, and it'll just be interesting to see if they can even get in a conversation without including Jimmy or Bam whatsoever. Like if that can actually happen, if KD, because of the fact that he has 4 guaranteed locked in years, if there's any, if he has any say in kind of where he goes and what goes out for him, et cetera. Cause there's been guys in the past that have kind of dictated who they wanted to play with and whatnot. it's going to hold up a lot of what Miami does, because you're right. Like, if you think that like they're going to plug, like we need to fill the PJ Tucker hole while this Kevin Durant stuff is looming, they do not give a flying bleep. I'm not at the cursing hour yet, Ethan. They don't care about that. They don't care about like the marginal stuff about like, oh, well, what are we going to do about point of attack defense and all these little things that maybe Heat fans are looking at right now. They are going to wait it out. And so pre-show, I said to the group here, I felt like today could end up a little anticlimactic, because the Heat are not going to be a team to rush to do marginal moves. They're going to wait this KD thing out for better or worse. But it does sound more and more like, as I'm just following DMs, text messages, the Twitter timeline, etc., it looks like Phoenix is gearing up, and a lot of Christian Hernandez, who has some sources out on the West Coast from Miami Heat beats, mentioned that like they're preparing like they're getting their ad hoc stuff rolling, preparing for him to be a Phoenix Sun. So I don't know if this will come together quickly and Miami can pivot even sooner.
Imagine if they lose him to James Jones. But let me ask you a philosophical question. And he has a strong relationship with Booker, too. I think Booker and Bam are two of the guys that he wants. I think if you're KD, you want to play with a young guy that you can trust, who has upside, who can help carry you to the next sort of generation. I don't think he wants to play with selfish guys anymore. I don't think he wants to play with Kyrie or with Westbrook or some of those he's played with in the past. I think he wants to play with guys who will help him. He and Curry obviously had kind of a rivalry there when they were playing together. But Marco, let me go to you on this. There is a chance, as they're waiting, that they're going to miss out on guys. And there is a chance, if that happens, that they're going to come back worse roster-wise than they were last year. And then I know what's going to happen. The Godfather is washed, all the rest of this stuff. If you're coming back, with marginal downgrades at some of these positions. And we'll get to the super chats in a second, so just hold them up. But are you okay with that? They wait this out 3, 4, 5 days, and they end up coming back with a roster that's not as good as the one last year because they were waiting for Durant. Because 2016, they met with Durant. It was one of the things that pissed Dwayne off. Even though it was Kevin Durant, was that they took care of Whiteside. That pissed him off more. But that they also met with KD, and he didn't know what the hell was going on. And we obviously know that sent this franchise into a bit of a spiral for a while where they made a whole bunch of mistakes. Are you okay with it if they wait?
Yeah, I am. For, I guess, the sole reason that it is Kevin Durant and you do everything you can. And I guess I'd be more okay with it if you know that they're going to do everything they can. And that's what the Heat front office has always done, is they put everything they can forward into a guy they want. Like Jimmy Butler, that was a 3-year thing, and this might be like a 6-year thing if you go back to 2016. So I think as a Heat fan, you should be okay with what the end result's going to be. And the bigger upgrades that are out there are most likely going to be in terms of trade for guys like Harrison Barnes or John Collins. You're still going to have to trade, kind of pull a trade off there anyway. There are going to be marginal improvements still to be had via the trade market. So it's not all about the free agency, but it's still going to hurt in the short term. And that's what you got to be prepared for whenever there's a blue whale out there like KD.
To me, another sort of more philosophical but roster question here. Let me ask this first. I'm so sorry, but if the Nets are asking for Jimmy or Bam, I'm hanging on the phone, immediately move on to somebody else. I don't think most Heat fans feel that way, but I understand the sentiment. Curtis, who's a regular follower here, is Jimmy untouchable even if KD and Kyrie is on the table? The Jimmy situation. Let's deal with the Jimmy situation first. The Jimmy situation is complicated, but for a lot of reasons, and I don't think Jimmy's going anywhere. Okay, but it's complicated to me because Jimmy is the reason this franchise is back. If Jimmy doesn't commit to them when he did, we would still be watching Whiteside, James Johnson, maybe not Dion, depends what kind of plane. Winslow, the rest of this stuff. Okay, Jimmy put them back on the map more than Pat did. Jimmy wanted to be here. A lot of it was Dwayne. Some was the organization, but some was his first meeting with Spoelstra was positive. But Jimmy made the Heat relevant again. Can you trade? I guess I don't think it's happening, so I just want to be clear on that. Can you trade Jimmy Butler?
No, for the same reason you said. I interviewed the year that Whiteside was the Max play and Wade left. I interviewed them at Atlantis, and I was there and I saw like Winslow and Wiz, like this is what the Heat is now. Like this is the next 4 years. And no James Johnson. Like if Jimmy doesn't come, the same jokes we're talking about the Knicks and the Nets. You could be talking about the Heat. Like, what is the Heat without a Dwayne Wade and a Shaq and LeBron? Like, Jimmy brought like relevance back to the franchise. You don't get Larry, I think, last year because he probably goes to the Pelicans, which is even like a bigger dagger to the Heat. So yeah, I respect that KD is, top 2, top 3, wherever you put him, and yeah, Jimmy is a top 10, 15, and 3 is better than 10. But I think it's deeper than that. Jimmy made this franchise relevant. And if it was me, I mean, again, if it was me, I'd try to keep Jimmy and Bam. But of course, realistically, someone's going to give up the farm. Like, maybe the Pelicans give up Zion or something ridiculous. So something has to give. But I just think you have to have certain lines in the sand because you see what happens when you don't put those lines. You have the Nets. The Nets didn't have no lines in the sand. They opened themselves up to Kyrie and KD for 3 years. Kyrie did whatever he wanted to do, and now they're about to leave them high and dry. So I think players also, because I feel this is my personal opinion. I think KD say you'll let Kyrie do all of this and still come back. All right, I want to go. So I think players are watching how you treat your stars, and I think that matters a lot. If you keep Jimmy, you just have to and I think where Barry said that Jimmy is like standing in the league when up these playoffs, like they respect him so much. So I just don't think you do him that dirty.
You're muted.
You're muted either.
Couple of things to address also. People are mentioning Ben Simmons. Again, remember he's a clutch client. And this is the thing about it, okay? When it's Kevin Durant, a lot of your rules go out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, we won't deal with clutch. Okay, maybe you will. We don't want to deal with another entourage. Well, KD doesn't really have an entourage, actually. Like, he's not known for that. It's not like LeBron's. It's not even like Shaq's. Dwayne really didn't have one, but they kind of knew all of them. They were all Zoe's people that basically just, bumped over to Dwayne. Jimmy doesn't have an entourage either. It's basically just his agent. I mean, essentially, and his marketing guy. Like, it's not a lot. I have reported previously that they were a little scared of Kawhi when Kawhi was available. They inquired. Bam was on the table. Bam was not the player he is now, but they were a little scared of Kawhi because Kawhi's, uncle and other things like that he can be difficult. We know that Kyrie is his own entourage at this stage, at this point. But KD is not. So I don't think that's an issue here. I don't think filling out the roster becomes an issue for them. They become a different kind of team without Bam. You don't find another Bam if you end up having to trade him. You become a different composition. But I've said this before, and this plays into the timeline here, okay? We've talked a lot about Jimmy's timeline, right? And I said in 2004, when Pat got Shaq, he said, this is going to take 2 years to build this team. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals with a patchwork route with Damon Jones at the point. They got there, but they lost at home, just like this year. Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals, that time to Detroit, this time to Boston. And then he made the rest of the changes that offseason. Antoine Walker, James Posey, Gary Payton, Jason Williams, etc. And then they won a championship because Dwayne went nuclear, but the role guys did do their part as they went forward. They got a certain type of player. Here's the thing, and I'll go to Tony on this. If they get KD and Jimmy, let's say it's not Bam. And then Fasan, we'll get to that in a second. Thank you for the super chat. If they get both of those guys, there's going to be a lot of players who may want to wait on their free agency to try to find their way down here, particularly some of your minimums, some decent vets, the kind of players who signed with Brooklyn last year and it didn't work, right? Like the Blake Griffins and LaMarcus Aldridges of the world, but there'll be players of that ilk. Do you think, let's say Bam's gone, and let's say there's not a whole bunch added here, and it's Jimmy and Kevin, and they start to fill in the pieces, can they compete right now for the championship right now? If the rest of the roster is depleted somewhat?
If they didn't just have 3 rotation players picked up on the veteran minimum, I would say no, but they did. They still have a pretty full roster. It's not like it got decimated right now. And we're going to have to trade some guys to get Kevin if we get Kevin. You might want to start trying to play the margins there to maybe keep Duncan Robinson under contract and on the team at that point with Kevin and Jimmy. I'm just saying that might be something you want to look at if they're willing to take, Tyler and other piece like Kyle to get the deal done. But yeah, man, there's 3 guys right now on veteran minimums that are going to be back in the team. No doubt about it. They'll be here. You have a stud rookie who could still be here if he's not a part of this deal. I think that there's no doubt about it. You take Jimmy and KD and you just make that work and you figure it out. They are two top teams. Kill themselves. They bend themselves over backwards, trade all their assets for 10 to 15 years to get two top 20 players. We're talking about two potential top 10, top 15 guys on the same roster with two playoff rotation starters still on the team. You do it. You figure it out.
Greg, to that end, can they do anything now? Let's get to this question by Fasan. Is Kyrie a legit second option? Are the Heat interested? Well, look, they have interest. Okay, they expressed interest. We know that they are interested. I understand the vax policy of the Heat, which I personally respect. I don't think that plays into this. We know this state does not care, so it's not going to be an issue in the state of Florida. In fact, DeSantis will probably throw Kyrie a parade. So there's really no issue with any of that. I think him being mercurial, I can tell you that a couple of years ago when Kyrie was traded for Kemba, that very high up people in the Heat organization thought Boston had upgraded just because they got sort of the Kyrie cancer off the roster. It didn't really prove that way because Kemba's body fell apart and was not as good as player as Kyrie anyway. So, what I would say is they're interested. I think they would have some trepidation. I think it would have to be managed in a certain way, but Jimmy has to be managed in a different way. Shaq had to be managed. Bron definitely had to be managed because that came with the national media. By the way, if any of this happens, the Heat are not going to be ignored on ESPN.
Oh, we're going to be
anymore.
No.
It may not be Heat Index, but it's all coming back. So, I mean, for the sake of the channel, I hope so. But they would have interest in Kyrie. I don't kid yourself. They would have interest in Kyrie. Darius Jordan, will you trade Bam if it means you get back Simmons? I hate Ben Simmons' game, but okay. Like KD, Jimmy, Ben for Lowry, Bam, and whatever makes it work. I mean, Ben Simmons to me is more of a problem than Kyrie Irving, right?
I would say let's figure out a way to send Ben to a third team or something so that we don't have to do that part of it, because I would rather avoid that entire situation. But
he doesn't care about basketball. That's the problem. For all the criticisms of Kyrie, when Kyrie plays, he plays. He just doesn't. The guy doesn't like. He hasn't liked basketball since LSU. He doesn't. It's just not in him. Continue, and I'm going to go to Marco.
No, I think it's a really interesting spot Miami's in because they're obviously going to swing for KD here, and it's going to hold up some things. And it's a real calculated risk because you have a team that is in contention, and no matter what anybody wants to say, they were 16 seconds and one missed shot away from the NBA Finals. So it's like it's one of the more unique positions they've been in, and it's happened to them all of a sudden. Like, and you think, I almost feel like, yo, KD, could you have thrown in this trade request a few days ago so that we could start to get this rolling? And maybe through back channels they have. And like the stuff about avoiding the hard cap had a lot to do with Miami anticipating these type of things coming down the pipeline, or other teams even. So I just think it's a real unique spot because Miami's going to have to choose between they really could risk letting a lot of guys slide. And I think you'd have to take that. You have to assume that risk, right? But we talk about Jimmy's window. Man, do you get in a weird spot if you then miss out on all the other guys waiting. So I just hope that for the Heat's sake, the Kevin Durant stuff gains clarity as we go live here at 6 minutes before 6 o'clock. 6 minutes, Slim Shady, you're on. So it'll be interesting to see if we start to hear news come in the next half hour or so.
All right, let's pivot. I didn't want to get to Marco, so let's take this off here. Well, actually, let's ask this question. Throw it up. Let Marco handle it. This feels like sweepstakes Giannis part 2 that killed their season. They need to be very careful. They can't afford to miss on this free agency. I don't think that's what killed their season necessarily, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually going to kind of piggyback off of what Greg was talking about the Nets. What is their kind of inclination to get this done a little sooner rather than later? And also maybe a team like Phoenix, or because I had this conversation on our group chat in the pool party chat, was if Phoenix or Ayton agrees to go to another team, and that'd be great for Miami, obviously, because then he can be involved in a kind of a deal with Brooklyn. Because if they were to, match that offer, Phoenix wouldn't be able to trade him anyway. So it's a whole kind of machination stuff. And if they do kind of match that offer, and Ayton's still on the team for until let's say December when they can trade him again, I don't get the Suns why they would do that. Keep Ayton on the team and have him kind of be a disgruntled guy for half the season, and why the Nets would kind of wait that long, because I don't think they want to go through all this drama again. This Kyrie stuff, KD, Harden last year. I think they're kind of done with that. I would hope so. And if Sean Marks, he talked to KD right away, that those two got really close. He talked to the owner, which I can't remember his name, because I feel like this thing might get done sooner rather than later. But that might just be me kind of being hopeful. But I don't really see why both parties wouldn't want to get this thing done, right now, whenever offers are probably the highest, and movement is probably going to be the fastest until the trade deadline.
This one comes in for our Rob. Bam to Jazz, Mitchell to Nets, Durant to Heat. Wow, that is. Let's ask this question now. Let's go back to Timmy on this. What do you think the Nets would try to accomplish here?
Because the Rockets own their draft for the next 5 years, they want to compete. They want to at least make it to the first round, second round. So it's why they're calling for young all-stars like Booker and Bam. So yes, we know. I can't remember who said this would be like the biggest trade ever. But the Nets don't want a bunch of picks. Yeah, they want to replenish their picks, but they want actual basketball players. So they're gonna probably keep Simmons and what's strange, like we're saying Aiden, right? And we don't know that Aiden might not want to go to Brooklyn. He might sign an offer sheet with the Pacers in 3 minutes, and then that just screws the Suns. So we're usually like the Rockets. The Rockets just completely tanked, and they were rewarded with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith. But the next guy go that route. The Houston controls their picks for the next 5 years. So I think they want actual basketball players, maybe at least a borderline all-star, an all-star, or 2 to 3 players who could at least who could score, who could do more than, so no specialists, no rebounders, like actual functional basketball players.
And real quick, I want to get on that, because I think there's angles for Miami to get picks. There's always angles for Miami to get picks.
Yes.
They can flip some guys out there. I don't get a lot of people just saying, "Oh, there's just these picks out there." They can unprotect picks and flip maybe Tyler from another team. There's for it. It's not just long. They only have the certain amount of picks to trade, because there's avenues out there, and I know Andy Ellisberg and Pat Riley know that there's avenues out there as well.
I don't think there's any downside to Kevin and Kyrie being moved from the Nets for the Miami Heat, because that means Miami can get involved in either one of those trades, even if they're not getting the marquee players, to get assets or to get marginally better. Try and help people fill caps to get picked. Like, to me, you get involved in this trade no matter what.
Here's the other thing about this. Kevin and Kyrie were in a situation in Brooklyn that really has no history. I mean, they went there because it was like, it's sort of like they were colonizing the West, right? Like, it's just like they went there because it was open land. Essentially, they could make it whatever they wanted. I mean, Jay-Z was there. It wasn't even, so they just basically they went there, but there's no infrastructure. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Sean Marks, but it doesn't seem like he had any control by the end of it. And nobody else there is going to have control. So I literally think if you put KD and Kyrie in Miami, you were looking at 15 more wins. Like just because they were in Miami in this structure. I have said this before. I put this on our Winnow feed, and I recommend, Greg, if you have an opportunity, because I can't get to it right now, try to post the link to this on our Off the Floor feed, and then I'm going to post the link to Off the Floor on here. But people forget, 2016, the Heat met with Kevin Durant. They met with him. Mm-hmm. You know who made the presentation? Eric Spoelstra. That's who they turned it over to. And you know what Eric's presentation was? This is how efficient we can make you, because we did this with LeBron. KD, I think, I had heard at the time that KD had some concerns about coming to Miami because he didn't want to do the thing LeBron did. But I think we're far enough along. And honestly, KD's gotten more slandered for the other thing he did, which was go join Steph and Clay and Draymond at Golden State. And now Golden State's won another championship without him. I think that plays into this too. KD is a guy who checks every message on Twitter, who has 25 burner accounts. I think him creating a sort of a different legacy now in Miami and actually winning a championship, I actually think he'd look at this as a positive now. Go ahead, Greg.
We have news. The Phoenix Suns and all-star guard Devin Booker are finalizing a 4-year, $214 million Supermax contract. So Booker's not going anywhere for KD. Malik Monk is finalizing a deal to join the Sacramento Kings and reunite with his Kentucky homeboy De'Aaron Fox. That's the quickest news as we are at 6 o'clock on the dot.
6 o'clock on the dot. Malik Monk, whose
Jokic,
career I
5
saved.
years,
Go ahead.
264. Jokic, 5, 264.
DeAndre Jordan to the Nuggets.
Jovic or Jokic? This comes in from
Jokic.
Lynette. by the way, A Aggressive Insurance, our friend Lynette, sponsor here. Reach out to A Aggressive Insurance.
Hartenstein.
Victor Oladipo has agreed to a 1-year, $11 million deal to return to the Miami Heat.
Wow. First official
deal.
news.
So
Everybody hang on that. I want to mention one thing and I'll let Greg come in. It's a good time to mention a sponsor. Let's do that real quick. Throw that in, and then let's process the Oladipo news here as we're kind of looking around. Throw this on Winnow, Greg, if you can, and I'm gonna post Winnow on here.
I do want has gotten the biggest contract ever in NBA history.
All right. Sponsor first. PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5 FIVE. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. PrizePicks. Download the app. You can get it at Google Play. You can get it at the App Store. Okay, download the app. Use the code 5 FIVE. Again, you get your initial deposit matched up to $100. It's PrizePicks.com. Come, just join. Look, I know there's not a lot of sports that a lot of you care about going on right now. You still can play the NFL futures. They're on there. They put them all up there. If you see something you like, get in on it now. Use that code PrizePicks. All right, Timmy, go ahead. Go ahead. You're staring at the screen.
PJ is gone.
3 years, $33 million, fully guaranteed deal to the Philadelphia 76ers.
They guaranteed the third year because initially they were not guaranteeing the third year. That's
reminding everyone, Oladipo, that's using bird rights, $11 million. That's no exception money. So that is an interesting move there because that means that they intend to not get hard capped. If I'm following that, I don't think that they would make that move so quickly if they were expecting to get the hard cap, but I could be wrong about that. So that's a really interesting early move for Miami to lock in Oladipo. I had heard going into this summer, guys, that Victor Oladipo and Tyler Hero would not be on the same roster to start next season. So I'm just interested to watch this now.
You need players under contract if you're going to sign Kevin Durant, is all I'm saying.
Right, but you can't trade Depot now until August 15th.
Yeah.
Well, you've agreed to terms, but you haven't signed.
Well, but I mean, that's happening though. I mean, let's process this part. Let's process the Oladipo part because this is interesting. You mentioned the Hero conflict. It's they're friendly. That's not the issue. They like each other. They hang out off the court. They didn't really fit great on the court, mostly when you also had Kyle or Jimmy out there with them, one or the other. This is a bit of a leap of faith again on both parts. Vic made one in them the last time. Now they've made a leap of faith of giving him a little bit more money that could go somewhere else. We've talked about some of the luxury tax potential issues here. Also, the state of Carnival stock right now, which is the lowest it's been essentially in decades, and kind of what's going on there. And yet you make an $11 million commitment to Victor Oladipo, I would assume not to be a starter. Although I guess stranger things have happened. I mean, is there just a chance Tyler Hero moves to the starting lineup and Victor Oladipo and Max Strus is your backcourt off the bench? Again, getting away from the KD thing.
Barn trade. Yeah. Trade.
No, totally. There is space for the two of them in conceptually. If Tyler Hero becomes a starter, then Oladipo has a role. There had been, a lot of just murmurs that Oladipo was looking for an even bigger role. You know what I mean? Because he wants to maximize those earnings. It's interesting that this came together. We had heard so many indications that Oladipo was looking elsewhere. Early on, right after the playoffs ended, it sounded like Oladipo maybe had a shot to stay. Then it got quiet, and I felt like he was going in another direction. We had heard recently, who was it? Washington, Denver, and a few others. So it's just interesting that happened so quickly. That means that was ready to roll. And Bobby Portis has just agreed to return to the Milwaukee Bucks. So strike him off the front court availability list.
And Anthony Simons got 4 years, $100 million from the Blazers.
Which is a good place to start looking around Tyler's extension.
Well, that is essentially the Hero contract, although we heard the Hero could be a little closer to 110. But Anthony Simons, breakout player last year for Portland, allowed them to trade CJ McCollum And
another guy that was on some Heat fans' radar, Isaiah Hartenstein, signed a 2-year, $16 million deal.
This is usually the time where Heat fans freak out about guys going out the door. But let's go to more Depot here, because I do think this is interesting.
It is.
Oh, Batum. Did we say Batum? Batum was going for 2 years.
Back
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna update here in a second. So you know what? We're gonna make Timmy the roll call guy, but I'm gonna go to him in 2 minutes because I do want to get to some of. I want to actually comment on some of the stuff.
Yeah, we'll never get to talk about anything because we just
that's happening relevant to the Miami Heat. So let's address the two things that have actually happened. Okay. Essentially, Victor Oladipo is getting the same money next year for 1 year that PJ Tucker is. He's basically fitting into the PJ Tucker salary slot. PJ goes, Victor stays. Higher upside offensively. 4 spot can be an easier position to fill, although we saw when Jay left, it was more difficult maybe than we expected. But again, I mean, you're making an upside play on Vic. Like they've had a year and a half or roughly to look at him. They must feel good about it because, I mean, whether it's 1 year or not 1 year, they're making the commitment is $10 million more, $9 million more than it was last year. They must have liked what they saw. I mean, do we like what we saw? Because defensively, I do. I thought his attitude was good. We saw a 40-point game in Orlando when nobody else was playing, but I also saw him struggling to fit with some other guys on the team.
Yeah, I think to me that's the biggest issue. You have to hope that he can still be able to play make at a pretty average to above average level. He's really portable though, right? You can play him in any lineup you would like to play him in. You can play him as a starter. You can play him as a 6-man. You can play him as a deep rotation guy to come off for your second shooting guard. It really doesn't matter. It's not bad money. You had to use the salary to sign somebody, and he's a great defender. And if he can come in and give you buckets, then he's worth the 111. But if he can come in and also be a secondary playmaker off the bench for you, it's a great upside deal. And you did see him get more comfortable with the lineups as the year went on, especially as we got into the first round of the playoffs. All of a sudden, he was making that deep corner pass. He was trying to hit the outlet. He was doing those things that a really good point guard should attempt to do. But there's still a piece of the game that seems to be moving a little faster than he's currently at. And that could just be recovery and time played off of an injury. He might just need more time on the basketball court to get there. But 111 is great for his versatility, what he supplies as a defender, what he supplies as a rim attacker. And if he can be a consistent playmaker for you, whether it's a starter or off the bench, he's going to outperform that contract in droves, and we're going to look really, really smart signing him to that deal.
I'll say this: I don't really have an issue with the deal at all. I think, I mean, again,
No
it doesn't really preclude you from doing anything else.
No,
it's Mickey's money, so I mean, I don't care about it, right? I mean, and you're taking a flyer on him having to me, this is a bet on a full training camp. I mean, that's what this is. This is a bet on a full training camp, and his working his way into this, and it's really a low risk bet. Now let's address the PJ situation because I don't want to just brush over it. Because when he opted out, we thought he was before he opted out. We thought he was coming back. Even after he opted out, I thought there was a good chance to come back. There were Heat people telling me 3-4 days ago that they still thought they had a chance. Heat players were trying to convince him to come back. I had a prominent agent tell me I'll believe it when I see it in terms of PJ actually leaving. Well, he left, and he left for another good team in the East. I mean, whatever people think of Philadelphia, they were a playoff team. They pushed the Heat in the playoffs. He will help them. I think he's the perfect fit next to Embiid. Like we say, perfect fit next to Bam because he'll do dirty work things so that Joel doesn't have to do them and just focus on scoring. Are we going to look back at this and say, and I'll go to you first, Timmy, as you're kind of scanning updates here, but are we going to look back at this and say they should have just given him the 3 years? Just given, or are we going to say, okay, they got a good year out of a really good role player and they got to pivot and, they couldn't count on him to be an offensive threat really. So they needed to go a different direction, maybe get a little bit more versatile in that regard anyway.
No, I don't think so because it's to my knowledge that they didn't do it because of the hard cap, correct? And when players like Kevin Durant are asking out, you just can't handcuff yourself for a full calendar year. Because if we gave Tucker the deal and we came hard capped, that means no Durant, no Kyrie. Maybe if Mitchell acts with February, you can. I just don't think, especially like we all heard about Riley. Riley wants to finish this build. Riley couldn't just basically to a Kyrie waste a year of transactions to keep Tucker. I love this game. I love his fit, but I think that you can maybe make the back up. And even though Marco is gone, but even though Mobamba is gone, you can still find a good big man to play next to Bam.
What do you think, Greg? I mean, everybody loved him. Pat loved him, called him like his favorite player. UD, all the rest of them. I know it's the economics of it. I get it. You don't want to be hard capped. You certainly don't want to be in that situation. They got other directions that they want to go. You also got a guy who'd be 38, 39 years old by the end of this thing, and he hasn't maybe played as many minutes as some, but I mean he's been around. Okay, he's got a lot of wear on that body. I think this is more of a locker room hit, honestly.
Yeah, that was what I said on Five on the Floor.
Than anything else, you know.
Yep. Is that I felt like it was gonna hurt just because like he was such a glue guy emotionally for that team on the court, all the things he did. I don't know that they're going to find anybody to replicate that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to take the burden off Bam and Jimmy with no PJ. You know, we continued to hear last night, like it got loud that Jay Crowder is going to end up in Miami. I'm just continuing to watch here. I'm sure all that stuff is on hold now. The other thing that's, I think, interesting here, as Mo Bamba has been retained by the Orlando Magic and essentially got about mid-level money to stay there for 2 years, 2-year, $21 million deal. Tyus Jones is returning to Memphis as I'm scanning here, is that Miami was willing to. So I think that this is informative as we're kind of like downloading the Oladipo stuff as it relates to the PJ Tucker move that they didn't choose to sign. This was not to do with Miami being cheap because they just spent the same amount of money on Oladipo. This had to do with the ramifications of using that exception and being hard capped. If they were to do that for PJ Tucker, the Kevin Durant conversation becomes so much more complicated to even execute. So that's why this Oladipo move, to me, it's a positive because it shows the Heat are going to stay. They're going to remain aggressive. They're not afraid to spend, but what they're trying to do is not limit flexibility. So to me, it's really encouraging that Oladipo came off the cuff with a signing.
This is different than the Oladipo I heard about before he came, by the way. There was a lot of negative stuff out of Indiana and Houston that he wouldn't fit into a team concept. And he had a great reputation when he came into the league. It got sullied a lot in Indiana where there was kind of some of the selfishness stuff. And, of course, even the Heat were kind of shied away a little bit because of, him basically wanting to join them while he was in a playoff series with the Pacers. But I think he's shown a lot here in the last year and a half. I mean, he's committed to the program. He came back on minimum money last year. Now he's coming back on a 1-year deal. I'm not saying anybody was offering him a ton of money, but he could have waited it out. I mean, you don't have to sign this right away. Go ahead, Greg.
The Bucks got Joe Ingles. Sorry, is it Ingles? Is it Ingles or Ingles? How do you pronounce it?
Ingles is fine, and Timmy has all the updates. Like we're getting the notifications at the same
yeah, like I see it, Greg. Eyes like at the same time.
Yeah.
I actually like that move for them. I think I had heard Utah wanted him back, but again, they're going a totally different direction. So I think watch the situation in Utah over the next couple of days. Let's see what happens there because that is. The Nets and Utah were the two potential blow-up situations. I don't think Portland is a blow-up situation right now. I think, again, with the Simmons, re-signing and then some of the other things that they've looked to do, I think that they're more feeling they can kind of move themselves back up towards an 8-7 spot and kind of grow with that team. Maybe even try to get the play-in or escape from the play-in. Go ahead, Greg.
Something I want to clarify that I was able to confirm with a prominent Utah Jazz beat writer is that and this was something that I had heard and I think it's the right time to mention it. Miami has submitted an offer for Donovan Mitchell. I have not heard about where that went beyond the offer that was submitted. They had the moves to make that happen before free agency started. So just, you're right. Like this Jazz situation, continue to watch what they're doing there. Cause I think Donovan Mitchell will remain in play. Obviously the Kevin Durant stuff is there, but they are big game hunting. So like all this stuff is in play.
No, it's all in play. And again, you're waiting for other teams to kind of decide that they're just going to tank. What's interesting is Utah's not a place that can tank because you can't really get free agents to come. It takes forever. So it's tough. That's one of the reasons they've tried to remain competitive. Like Utah's kept teams together a while that other franchises might not, because when you have good players who actually are there, it's just hard to attract others to go there. All right, so let's just go through real quick just some sort of record keeping on the Heat. Strus, Yurtseven, Vincent, they're all back in the fold on essentially minimum contracts next year. So you're talking about kind of cheap labor that they have to either fill out a roster or maybe sweeten a deal if they potentially need to. They also could do the thing where they sign some guys to those 3-year contracts to throw them into a trade if they need to make money work. They've done that before. We mentioned Andy. I mean, this is where the Heat have a real asset because he's able to think on his feet. We go back to the Butler trade a couple of years ago where it basically blew up because of what happened in Dallas. And I still want to hear the whole story, but essentially I was told heaven and earth was moved to get that trade done, after that. And they had to essentially give up on Mo Harkless that year and ended up getting him back after the fact, which didn't turn out to be such a great thing. All right, but let's go around just for people who are just joining us here. Super chats. All of your super chat stuff, we will get to your questions first. We found Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. I do want to put up, I don't know if you've got it here, Alejandro, our Winnow feed, which is off the floor. This is free for a week, and then it's $3.05 a month or $30 for the year if you really want to save money. It's you can find it at winnow.app/off the floor. I think Alejandro's going to throw it up there. It's just up a little bit on our comments. Check that out because we have been posting things before they go anywhere else. We also Brady does some Q&As there, as does Alex. Where is Alex, by the way? What is Alex doing? Where the hell is Alex today?
We never know where
in
Alex
3 weeks
is.
when
But
free agency is over. So check that out. Greg's probably going to be hosting 5 on the floor tonight, although I'll try to jump on there at some point from somewhere. All right, so let's just review, as Alejandro's finding that, let's just review kind of what's happened so far. Victor Oladipo has re-signed with the Miami Heat for roughly $11 million of bird rights. $11 million. PJ Tucker basically going for $11 million a year over 3 years to Philadelphia. Of course, we talked about Durant early on. We've also got signing in Milwaukee of Joe Ingles. Others, Mo Bamba was talked about as a possibility for the Heat, is re-signed with the Orlando Magic. Anything else of great significance to this point?
I think the Bucks are probably done dealing with Wesley Matthews getting a year.
they're not in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes because they've moved forward with their free agency. Milwaukee has agreed to terms with Wesley Matthews, with
Joe
Ingles,
Javon Carter. So they have moved on with their offseason. Bobby Portis. So like Milwaukee, I think that they are not waiting around for Kevin Durant.
Well, we're going to find out who's waiting around and who's not waiting around. Let's. I'll go to Brady on Depot because he just came in here. Are you surprised that they would look at this for one more year?
I mean, yeah, a bit. I think it tells you, what they're trying to do, I guess, in terms of trades, because there's a lot of guards on this roster. We learned that this season. We learned that in the playoffs. So you're looking around the roster, and you have Kyle, you have Tyler, you have Max, you have Duncan, you have Gabe, and now you have Depot. Like, there's just so many guards on this roster where, for one, it tells you, I guess, the Duncan element, the guy that we keep talking about that gets you the 4, is definitely probably going to be in play. And then there's the Tyler element, which gets you the big fish, which gets you those big names. So it just shows, I guess, that they're going to be dealing a lot of these guards. In terms of Depot, what he can provide, I mean, if you're going to bring him back and if you make some of these trades, I don't think it's the worst thing if he runs your bench. Like, it just really isn't. There was little times there throughout the season. There was times even in Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals where he had a higher usage than Jimmy Butler. Like, there was a time at the end of that Game 7 where he just had the ball in his hands. I think ideally you don't want it to be that high, but ideally you want it to be him to be an efficient scorer that we've seen over time. I don't think anybody's expecting on this contract Indiana Victor Oladipo. You just need a good enough offensive Victor Oladipo, because even with what we saw last season, I'm very confident with him defensively. Like, we saw what he was able to do to Jaylen Brown in that one game, or what he was able to do just in terms of the big picture of last season. If he just gives enough offensively, and that'll come through offseason reps and just finally having an offseason to work on basketball, like not having to work on rehab, like that's actually pretty big. So I'm interested just to see, I guess, now what they do with these other guards on the roster.
We talk about the other guards on the roster. Okay. Is Duncan Robinson a guard? He was a starting 2 guard for the Heat for a little while, right?
He can't guard guards.
Okay, let's be nice.
He can't guard forwards.
But he can't guard guards.
Trade value is just going down as we speak.
I know.
He's
the best player we've got.
Very positive developmental project for the Heat, who handled himself well under difficult circumstances. Can we just repeat that 5 times fast? Super chats, we'll get to you guys if you have questions or all the rest of this. He's also can be an elite shooter. Let's get into the Duncan Robinson part of this. because his contract has value, I believe. Although what I've been told essentially is that he's a difficult trade because the teams that would want him are contenders. Like you plug him into a hole as a contender, right? But he was just on a contender in what seemed like the perfect role, and he couldn't play down the stretch, and he couldn't play in the playoffs, really, even though he did make 8 threes in the first game. So, I mean, I don't think a rebuilding team has a ton of interest in Duncan Robinson, because what is his shooting going to provide? I guess some space. I mean, a team like a Houston, a Detroit, they're not looking for Duncan Robinson types. They're looking for athletes, okay? And then eventually they try to finish out the roster as they go. Where could you send Duncan, Greg? Like, I like what team? Pick a team that would have interest because, Tony, you could get to it too. I mean, either of you guys, like, who would have interest in Duncan Robinson right now that could utilize him better than the Heat could?
Look, you need it to be a contender, and you need it to be a contender that needs a specialist like that. And right now, with the Clippers signing Amir Coffey, they have a full roster and a berth of assets and a ton of friggin' wings. And one of them could be an elite shooter. Doesn't have to be a guy who mimics the skills of the other person, which they have about 3 people who fill that role. I think Duncan to the Clips has always made sense to me. And with that Amir Coffey signing now, I think it makes even more sense to me.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, the Clippers. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said I agree. I actually thought it would have been the Nuggets before they got KCP because KCP can actually defend.
Right. Yeah, Denver makes some sense too, but the Clippers, that's interesting because especially if you've added in John Wall who can't shoot. Yes. Right. So now if you're going to play John Wall some minutes, you have to create spacing there. We know obviously PG can shoot. Obviously Kawhi can shoot when he's there, but adding one more spacer. What's that?
They could.
The Lakers could use him.
Oh, they absolutely could. But he's perfect with the Clippers because you have 2 elite wing defenders. I mean,
you're right. That can cover up.
Everybody would be hunting Duncan the entire game, but like I mean, LeBron. I mean, you have Kawhi just reach his arm out. Like it's not that challenging there. But I mean, I do. What are the odds of Duncan Robinson on this roster when the season starts? 15%, Greg. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that sounds high. I would think things have gone awry if that's the outcome of this offseason. There would have to be some kind of crazy thing where so much good stuff happened that you don't even care Duncan Robinson is back for that to actually be how this works out. It's just a math thing, frankly.
Kevin Durant.
With you.
Can we talk about how Dort just got paid?
By who? OKC?
Yeah, $88 million.
Because I mean, I thought they were gonna exercise the option there. They didn't.
Well, they declined it to make him a restricted agent.
Okay.
587.
87.5.
He's a good player. I like him as a player. But let's pivot to the hero thing here now because you've just brought back Oladipo. Tyler wants to start, right? But he's also an asset. But he's also may get paid $110 million over 4 years. That's what we're anticipating. Most likely outcome for Tyler Hero, Greg, is before we go back to Brady.
Oh man.
Do it.
I'm guessing here, y'all. So don't hold me to this. I mean, everyone's gonna hold it to me anywhere. I don't think he's gonna start the season on the Heat. I have a feeling that, listen, this is what dawned on me late yesterday. This is year 4 of this Jimmy thing, man. Riley, when has he never gone all in? And I just feel like now is the time. I feel like there's gonna be so much opportunity in the next few weeks. I expect, especially with this Depot news, I don't know, something just tells me Hero may get moved, but I could be wrong. I'm guessing, guys. That's not based on intel, just gut feeling. And I got the guts, so who knows?
Water cleanup in Florida. We'll do that ad a little bit later. Brady, let's we talked about the PJ loss here. If Kevin Durant's coming in to play the 4, nobody gives a damn. Okay. No. I mean, I hate to say it, but if KD is not coming, Batum is taken already, right? He's already. Yep. Where'd he go? He stayed with
the Clippers.
2 years, $22 million.
Okay. We've talked about Jay Crowder, but let's which I still think is a legitimate possibility here. And he's on a 1-year deal. It fits it. You know, you got Depot on a 1-year deal. You bring in Jay on the last year of his contract. They're making essentially the same amount of money, $10 and $11 million. What changes? And I don't think any of us really want to see Jay playing 35 minutes or even the minutes that PJ does. But we've seen it now, and there was a year in between, which was a disaster. But what are the differences between Jay and PJ as sort of the Bam complement, even if, again, Jay may not have the same role he had 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, I think for one thing,
The mechanic is back in Miami for 2 years.
Dwayne Dedman, 2 years,
That's
$9
surprising.
million. That is particularly weird because 2 years, $9 million essentially is now they can use his bird rights, $4.5 million. If only the first year of that's guaranteed, they could use Dwayne Dedman in a sign and trade scenario. It's interesting that they're like getting these sign and trade guys that we thought could get signed and trade all done now. Dwayne Dedman, we did not expect to be back. This shows the Heat move in silence, guys.
They do, and you know what that tells me? I don't think Dwayne Dedman is back. I think
No.
$9 million.
I don't think they're paying him the 9. I think they're accumulating contracts. That's what this feels like to me.
Which, if you had one criticism about last year's team build, is that they had no cap flexibility at all.
Right. I think they're accumulating contracts. I don't think they look. I respect what Dwayne Dedman's done down here. He was great. We were comparing him to Birdman Anderson. He hit the wall halfway through last season. I mean, he was not really playable, and they have Yurt, and they just drafted a kid who's not 5, but I don't think. I mean, this is Pat's not giving out reward contracts right now, particularly for guys who weren't great in the playoffs. I would be very surprised if that contract stays here long term. I think that is a cap mechanics move. A cap mechanics move. We will see. I think that's
what gets tough is that
something's coming, as we say. I think
these sign and trade guys, just to clarify everyone and level set expectations, you cannot aggregate multiple players that are signed and traded. So like Oladipo was just signed and Dedman was just signed. You can't take Oladipo and Dedman and put them together in one deal for another player. That can't happen. So just to level set expectations.
Right. So they're not going to be packaged together, but
Unless
one of them could be packaged with others, though.
Right.
So you can add Dedman's money. If you need to get a little higher, you could add Dedman's money to Duncan's, right?
I believe that's how that goes, but I don't think the 2 sign and trades can be aggregated.
No,
together.
I know what I'm saying. Like, if you need a little more to get up with Duncan's money and some of the other money that you got here, you've just created an extra $4.5-5 million, right? I mean,
it would have to happen in a set. I think it has to happen in a separate transaction. I'm almost sure of it. But keep me honest in the comments, y'all. Somebody who knows the CBA better than I.
We'll see on it. It's just, I mean, that move is out of.
I think that would have to be December though. Like if you'd have to let his restriction up first.
Correct.
December,
then you can do it all day. Yeah, absolutely.
But here's the other part of this. This is like the Myers-Leonard thing to a certain degree, where everybody was freaking out about the money that Myers got, but that money was basically given to him. Sometimes guys just get rewarded. JJ Redick got a 1-year, $22 million deal once. Because was it Philadelphia, I believe, they needed to get to a certain cap number, okay, or they needed to get to the floor, and so JJ just made a lot of extra money for podcast equipment, essentially. Send me that money, right? On the super chat, by the way, all your super chat comments we're going to get to. Let's start to get some of the comments back up here, if we can, Alejandro, our producer. But look, I think to me, this is just like the Myers thing, where they were basically everybody's pissed off about the money they gave Myers, but the money they gave Myers was essentially a way to have that contract to trade later. Sometimes you got to give guys more money than you want just so you have flexibility. This comes from Reckless Abandan, I think. And then is that an A before the S? No, that's $5. Thank you very much. Hey guys, everything's going down like it is. Do you expect a resolution with Kyrie before Miami tries to sign a new 4 to replace PJ? I think Miami's taking care of bookkeeping that they can now. And then I think they're going to be on hold. If I was to predict, I think they get Oladipo back in the fold. They bring back that Dedman contract. PJ was gone anyway. They've already got Strus, Vincent, Yurt sort of locked in. Jimmy and Bam's contracts are there. I think this is now, and then you work on the Tyler extension, and I think this is more, you're kind of waiting it out. That's what are you missing out on? You're missing out on a potential 4, right? Like that's
well. But here's the other
and you
part
have Duncan to trade for one if you need to.
here's the thing. Like, if you were to do a top-heavy move for a Kevin Durant or a Donovan Mitchell, somebody like that, the cool thing about some of these moves is that you're using bird rights to acquire these players at above like veteran minimum salaries. So not only are you conceivably getting potentially more talented players at, obviously more competitive salaries than vet minimums that are not even in play yet, it's that you also can now throughout the season salary match in different ways and get super interesting. And I know some of this would have no trade clause stuff attached to it, but I just think it's interesting because the two moves indicate that Miami is not going into this shy to spend at all. It's just they're being very surgical in the way they're going about it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, and remember, let's go back to 2016, which a lot of people don't want to remember that offseason because they lost Dwayne, right? But on the day they lost Dwayne, on the day that Dwayne committed, they made 5 or 6 moves like that. Okay, if you remember, people didn't like the Dion contract after. You liked it that year. Signed him for 1 year, $2.75 million that first year. Dion vastly outperformed that contract. James Johnson, they traded for Luke Babbitt. Remember that? They gave up like a conditional second-round pick. They brought in a ton of guys that day. They had all of that stuff kind of lined up. They will have a plan for all of these circumstances. Now, sometimes you don't get the guy you want because by the time you execute it, he's gone. But they will have a plan for all this. And they also may tell agents, okay, this is the other thing to consider. I've been doing this a long time. They may tell agents who have guys out there, just wait us out a little bit. Give us a day or two. Let's see how the Durant things. We have a contract waiting for you, but we're not going to go that direction unless this happens, okay? Whether it's Durant, whether you're waiting for Mitchell to blow up, or what in Utah, but they will have contracts ready for guys, and they will try to explore it with their agents and say, okay, here is the possibility that we can get this. We can take care of this. We've got Brian Fonseca joining us. You can follow him at Brian Fonseca, New York. So we got a full crew here again. We don't know where Marco went. He vanished in the San Antonio.
What's happening with this Dwayne Dedmon shit, Ethan? Like, what's going on?
We just talked about the Dwayne Dedmon thing. I think that's a contract. I think that is a contract to move, my friend. I think that is a contract.
They're running it back.
So I have one big question. As I was I was on other streams just following all this, and this is mainly directed toward Greg and Ethan because y'all are the most plugged in here. And I mean, compared to everybody else following this team, Oladipo and Dedmon, could they be moved now or could they not be moved now with these deals?
December 15th, correct?
So there's a couple things.
But it's not official yet.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So yeah, Brian's alluding to something.
Yeah.
No, nothing is signed. The ink ain't dry on a damn thing. So like they can formulate this and you could all of a sudden see 3 and 4 team deals and crazy stuff that they can like connect the dots on when they see all the transactions and kind of how it all lays out. Some of this stuff can change. Was I on mute that whole time?
No. We heard you.
No, you're good.
All right. I was like,
you.
damn,
Yeah,
that would.
You just said that he traded for Durant, right?
Oh, of course, right?
He gave
So-
up multiple picks.
They can't be traded. But then hold on, bear with me here because there was something related to Tyler Hero. This is from Brian Goins.
Uh-huh.
Ethan, sorry, I keep going to our
Brian,
competitors. I'm just joking.
Go to Brian, it's fine.
So check it out. Bear with me because this was valuable information. January. If any of y'all have it quicker than me, please spit it out. But it wasn't December 15th for Oladipo. It was a later date, January 15th, but he has a no trade clause. I don't know that Dwayne Dedmon is in the same boat there. But that's really interesting because they have that mid-size expiring contract and they're not using an exception at all. But the Dwayne Dedmon thing is much less clear. Some people are like, is it an indication that they're striking out in other places? I don't know that's the case because they're operating above the cap now anyway. So it's like, might as well, if some of these guys that they have bird rights to that they don't need to use an exception to retain anyway, why not keep them if you feel like $4.5 million Dedmon can be moved in December? Why not if you're not worried about a hard cap at the moment and you have bird rights on these guys?
No, that's fair. Brian, let's go to you on this. I want to ask the same question because we're going to pivot back to Durant. Super chats, throw them in here, okay, and we'll answer all the questions. Prize Picks, use that code 5, FIVE, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. And, of course, We mentioned our friend Mark Brown at the beginning. We'll do a couple more spots as we go. But Brian, as we cycle back kind of the beginning of the show, thanks everybody who's joining us. Are you okay? And you're in that market. I mean, you know what it was like with Kyrie and Kevin. But this is a different organization, obviously. They probably handle these things a whole lot better than Brooklyn did. They didn't have the infrastructure for this, particularly when Kyrie sort of went off the deep end again, off the side of the earth. But let me ask you this. Are you okay losing out on a couple of players potentially who can make your roster that was 4 points from the finals better to wait out Kevin Durant with the strong possibility that you don't get him?
If I can get Donovan Mitchell now, I'm going to try to get Donovan Mitchell now. If I can get not Bradley Beal, because he already resigned his deal, and I don't even know how much interest I have there. But if I can get somebody of that caliber now, I'll just do it now instead of waiting out the Kevin Durant thing. And for me, Kyrie Irving is not even a question. I want no parts of that. I don't give a fuck how talented he is. I don't care about his handle, the best handle I've ever seen, whatever the case may be. He's like bona fide in NBA Street Volume 3. I don't give a fuck. I want no parts of Kyrie Irving. I don't want to have to manage that situation. I don't want to have to pay him. I don't want to have to deal with his shit when we're trying to win a championship, right? If I'm any organization, I'm not even speaking on behalf of
Send super chats because we're no longer making any money for this stream because we have Brian on here.
This monetization.
Please send money to replace that.
No, like, because here's the thing. I'm seeing Heat fans talking themselves into it, I think because they're bored. And I'm like, listen, you don't want this. Like, from a basketball perspective, it sounds great. But it's never just basketball with this dude. And it's a very sensitive time for this team trying to build. And it's like, you cannot just mess around with, let's experiment with Kyrie when Jimmy is on like his knees and he's going to break his tailbone again. And it's like, no, you can't deal with all that. You need to be able to have one singular focus. And this organization cannot afford to take that risk. Kevin Durant, I think, is interesting, though, but I don't know if you're going to – I just don't know if they're going to have enough of a package on their own led by Tyler Hero and whatever else. Ethan, you're on mute.
We talked about what the Nets' motivations may be. I mean, you're up there. What are the Nets' motivations then? I mean, is it even worth taking on a time? I mean, it feels to me like it's a full rebuild. I guess you could rebuild with a 21-year-old or 22-year-old two-guard who just won Sixth Man of the Year. I mean, it's a start. I mean, you're going to need a whole lot else. I mean, they've traded so many picks over the years. I mean, it's, they're always going different directions. I don't even know what they would want. I mean, I would assume it would just be replenish the pick closet, right? Basically, get a couple young players.
The Nets are, and they're already talking like they don't want DeAndre Ayton, they want Devin Booker. Like they want to aim high with this Kevin Durant package. I think they're just playing hardball now because it's the start of it. We know this is how negotiations begin. You need to be able to actually set your price high, and then eventually somebody's going to come down, be it them or the other team. So I just think that they're going to start off there. And the Heat, I mean, they're going to be involved because they're the Heat. They're in on everybody, as you say. And Kevin Durant has them on the list. But Tyler Hero is the best that they're going to be able to do from a single-player perspective. And then from there, it's just going to be like other guys and picks because trading Jimmy or Bam doesn't make sense, and I don't think they're going to do that anyway.
Well, that's the other thing about the Suns. I mean, if you're Durant, why do you want to play with the Suns if you don't have Devin? I mean, just to play with Chris. I mean, this is the whole thing. You're just kind of reshuffling it. I mean, if you're KD and you're looking at it, let's look at those two situations, Tony. If those are the two places, I mean, they both make sense for a lot of different reasons. Phoenix doesn't have state tax either, do they? Arizona? I feel like they're not a tax state, but I may be wrong. I know Texas doesn't, along with
Texas
Florida.
and Florida is all I know.
Yeah, I don't know about Arizona. I know that Arizona has always been attractive to players to play, and that's why I was always surprised they didn't sign more free agents. It's usually the guys at the end of their contracts, like a Grant Hill, who like to play golf. But I'll say, I mean, those two situations. I mean, Phoenix. I don't know if Jay's going to be there. We don't know what's going to happen with Ayton. They were by far the best team this year. Like, it wasn't close. They were dominant by all the metrics and all that. And then it kind of fell apart like Chris Paul teams always do when it matters. If you're Kevin Durant, here's the two situations. You've got Miami with at least Jimmy Butler. You've got Phoenix with at least Chris Paul. You've got the Bam and Booker questions there. You have elite coaches, I believe, in both stops. Okay. I think the guy in Miami is better, but others may disagree. you have one really good owner and one really bad owner. Okay, and I don't know how much KD cares about that. And from a GM perspective, I'm never going to disrespect James Jones. He's my guy, okay? But, like, he ain't Pat yet, right? Although he's done a very good job out there. So where would you go? Well, and it's East versus West also, which the East was stronger this year, actually, top, sort of in certain areas. But the champions out West and the Clippers look formidable.
Yeah, look, I mean, when you really put it out there, there's no doubt that the talent you want to play in Miami, whether Bam's here by himself with him or Jimmy's here by himself with him, or even hell, Kyle and Tyler like by himself with him, I'm taking Miami 7 times out of 8. But there's a culture piece to this. Kevin loves building relationships with young black coaches and young players in the league that he feels like he has a connection to or he can help build. So him and Monty Williams is a thing there. And there's also that thing with Kevin. It's like I still think he wants to be the guy that brought his team to a championship. And if he has a great relationship with Chris Paul, then he would be a clear number 1 there. I mean, without doubt, he'd be clear number 1 wherever he.
Somebody just texted me and asked me, Pat is not going to try to get KD. I don't know where the hell they heard. This is somebody prominent in media. I don't know. It said for Mitchell. Could this be a little bit of an okie doke here? Ray, I'm going to go to you on this just for me, because you've done this stuff on Mitchell, obviously, and Beal,
but
and others.
Chris would play largely second fiddle. Did I cut out?
You cut out. It's okay. We got most of it.
Right.
We're good.
What'd you ask?
I don't know. I'm going to Brady now, but you said plenty of cool stuff, so you're good. Don't worry about it.
That's code. That's code for he didn't hear a damn thing I said. That's what.
No, it was really good for what I could hear, but then we disagreed. Brady, let's go to this. This is a crazy ass question because I never thought I'd be asking this question in any circumstance. Okay, you can follow Brady at BradyHawk305. What is the KD Jimmy fit?
I mean, you could fit anybody next to Kevin Durant. Like, I feel like that should be said, first of all. The only thing that doesn't fit next to Kevin Durant is somebody that's not actually on the court, and that's been Kyrie Irving. Like, that's the one guy that probably is not the ideal fit. In terms of, you could put KD at the 3, you could put him at the 4. It doesn't matter what front court piece you have, you can move him around. But ideally, something we talked about all season, and something they actually kind of did, was Tyler Hero took the reins for a large part of the regular season. Just a guy that could carry the load, and kind of help Jimmy out in that way. The other way of doing it is to kind of have that co-host era of having Jimmy and KD go back and forth. I know you were just talking about the Mitchell thing, and I'm right there with Brian. Like, if they are going along the way and they're going to go after Kevin Durant, like, everybody's way for that. But I don't think you pass up on a Donovan Mitchell to just get your hand and raise your hand in the sweepstakes of Kevin Durant. Like, you get Donovan Mitchell if he's sitting there, but it still is Kevin Durant. Like, my question is, who are the guys left on the roster? Because you're throwing everybody out there. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you get minimums and you throw everybody out there. But ideally, you get shooters around them. You get Jimmy and KD, and you roll the dice, I guess, in that era. But the fit is pretty clear. Get some defenders, get some shooters, and let them two just kind of run everything offensively.
Brady, the KD Yurtseven pick and roll. What are we worried about here, man?
He's probably included too. They got to throw the whole roster.
Wait, if they're keeping Dedmon, Yurt maybe out the door.
But maybe it doesn't mean that. I don't think the Dedmon move is to keep. I don't know. That move on its face, just giving Dwayne Dedmon $9 million for 2 years when you could find another serviceable big like you just found Dwayne Dedmon. This is a Myers Leonard move at less money. I just think it's half the money that Myers was making. Yes, it gives you protection for a certain amount of time. He's a team guy, but I think that contract's getting moved, or at least they're giving themselves some options. I mean, they have to. They need pieces to put together here. By the way, people are taking your comment. It's actually you, Greg, that supposedly reported this when you didn't report it. People are taking, because Hoop Central just retweeted you, said that Miami has submitted a trade offer for Donovan Mitchell. So people are asking me, prominent people in media, does that mean they're not going after KD? And I'm like, no. But this is how aggregation works.
No, that trade offer was submitted prior to today, prior to KD's request.
Okay. It's here. I'm gonna clarify this because you know how this stuff spreads.
And then Utah suddenly trades Royce O'Neal.
Yeah, right.
They're clearing
Or
space.
first.
Well, they didn't make a play to bring Ingles back. Who when they traded him, the feeling was that he could come back this offseason. They had the option to do that.
They also kind of what Donovan Mitchell's best friend is Eric
Pascal.
Yeah.
And didn't they make him an unrestricted free agent, something
And
like
they
that?
also didn't hire Johnny Bryant. They hired Will Hardy instead. So slowly but surely, they are not appeasing Dawn as they did last year. Just slowly.
But Timmy, we've always said that the easier guy to move is Mitchell. Rudy Gobert doesn't fit on as many teams. And if you're going to field offers for both of them,
and he's
their asking price for Rudy Gobert is also very high.
Go ahead. Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me. Go ahead. Continue.
So
I'm typing stuff.
So I have a question and Tony kind of alluded to it. So you pay Coffee, you pay Batum, you got John Wall. Does Morris really want to stay there?
I couldn't imagine that he wants to fill in that role where he's playing 6 to 10 minutes. He's out right now of the rotation. You have a specialist, and I think Duncan fits two teams right now really quickly. I think he fits Golden State. I think he fits the Clippers. They're contenders, and they need specialists. So to me, if you're LA and the Clippers and you just brought in a non-shooter, you really need to space the floor with a guy that tweens between the 2 and the 3. And Duncan fits all of those molds. So for Marcus Morris right now, should be on the table if you're talking about a trade with somebody for Duncan Robinson.
I'm with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Marcus Morris, in some ways, Brady might be. I mean, in some ways, he's an upgrade over PJ Tucker. I mean, as an offensive player, right? Just versatility offensively.
I look at it as a better version of Jay Crowder, of what he was in 2020. A guy that's similar build, a guy that can shoot above the break, probably more efficiently, a guy that's much better in the mid post. Something I keep bringing up is the one guy on this roster, I guess, other than Bam, that could do stuff in the mid post in the front court from this Heat team was Markieff Morris, and he provided that for small pockets of the season. The rest of their front court guys, Dwayne Dedmon, Omer Yurtseven, Caleb Martin, PJ Tucker, none of them are mid post guys in any capacity. So Marcus Morris being able for one to run that mid-post stuff and be able to give them on-ball reps to actually run stuff through him is a total difference maker, I think, in that sense. But the biggest thing, and this can be talked about from any front court player they possibly pick up, is the above-the-break shooting. That's the thing I keep coming back to. If you look at this roster, PJ Tucker did a lot of things, and I was a big PJ Tucker guy. But the one thing, it restricts them a lot of their movement offense when a guy can only run, I guess, from corner to corner and roll to the basket and then run that floater. They need somebody that can move all over the court. Marcus Morris is that. Jay Crowder was that. I think you asked me earlier about Jay Crowder before the Dwayne Dedmon thing popped up. The way I feel about Jay Crowder, and I know a lot of people are low on him just from his postseason that he just had, I think he is the best case scenario of a backup 4 that you could ask for. I know that a lot of people are thinking if you get Jay Crowder, he's your starter next to Bam. I think if they were able to find a way, I guess, with sign and trades, or I don't even know how it's possible now that they got Depot and these other guys, but if they were to find a way to get Crowder as their backup 4 and then get their main 4 with the Duncan trade, that's pretty ideal in my opinion. But the above the break shooting is ideal for me. If we look at what Jimmy has had and what he hasn't had a true pick and pop threat, I guess, since Kelly Olynyk or Myers Leonard, and those are not versatile pick and pop threats. Marcus Morris, those type of guys, they're versatile pick and pop threats.
All right. I do want to shout out a couple of sponsors here as we go forward. Thanks to our friend Mark Brown, markbrownpa.com. Prize Picks, use that code 5. I do want to tell you about one other here as we go. It's our new betting partner. I know, again, there's not a ton to bet on right now. I just sent it to Alejandro in the chat here. It's called Better Edge. This is peer-to-peer, so this is legal. It's legal in 45 states, including the state of Florida. Here's the cool thing about Better Edge. Again, the fact that it's legal, that helps. You'll get your money. But in addition to that, it's like social betting. So you go on there and you find the bet that you want. So you find the line that you want over at Better Edge. It's betteredge.com/5 reasons. I know Tony's played with it quite a bit here. Our guy, Sean Rochester, they've got accustomed to the platform. Get on there now before football season and basketball season. This is our page. So essentially, if you go to this page, you will get the $20 referral bonus. Okay. You're not getting it from me, but you're getting it from them. So basically, you go to BetterEdge, BetterEdge.com/5 reasons, and you will get $20 to play there and just check it out. But like I said, if you like a certain line, you don't have to wait to see what else comes up on the betting platforms, or if you're in Vegas or whatever, you'll find the line you want there, and it just will affect how much money you can actually win in the process. So go to betteredge.com/5reasons. Also want to shout out our sponsor, Eric Rubenstein. We see him at Heat games all the time. He's actually watching the stream right now, as are some of our other sponsors. So check him out on the Instagram handle, Ask About Me, I Got You. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Go to Ask About Me, I Got You. He's your personal injury attorney that you got to reach out to. You got any kind of an issue in that regard, whether it's medical malpractice, car accident, and the like. It's our friend Eric Rubenstein at Ask About Me, I Got You on Instagram. All right, so let's just reset here for people who are just joining us. I'm actually going to take a break here in about 10 minutes. We're going to be rotating people in and out. Victor Oladipo is re-signed with the Miami Heat for $11 million for 1 year. That's using his bird rights, so it does not really affect anything else that they do except potential luxury tax implications. That's the first one. PJ Tucker has signed a 3-year, roughly $33 million contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. I had heard they were not guaranteeing the third year. I guess ultimately they did guarantee the third year. So the Heat were trying to get him back. Players were trying to get him back. PJ has moved on, had a great year in Miami. They loved him, but sometimes it just comes down to economics, going out the 3 years, potentially being hard capped, similar to the Jay Crowder situation. Jay Crowder is a potential replacement. We'll see how that goes. Kevin Durant, we've discussed it. Of course, the Miami Heat are interested. Okay, the question is whether or not you can make this happen and what you would have to give up. Other than that, Nick Batum is re-signed. That was a potential fit at the 4 for the Heat. He's re-signed with the Clippers. Mo Bamba has re-signed with the Orlando Magic, so he's out of the way. Joe Ingles has signed with the Milwaukee Bucks, so they're just making some additions to kind of bolster the roster. They re-signed Wes Matthews as well. Those are most of the significant moves, I would guess, so far. We've also commented on the fact that Utah seems to be heading towards a repositioning. I don't know if I call it tanking, but they certainly seem to readjusting the roster. So that is something that we need to watch. Let's go to Timmy on this here as we start. Our guy Timothy Bain, who's our Bahamian correspondent. He tends to check on the players when they're in the off season. So he can do that here as well. But Timmy, I guess we look at it this way. Everybody's waiting for the Pat Whale move. Give me, if you don't get Durant, give me the best case scenario here. Now that we know, again, Depot's back, Tucker is gone. Who's the 4 that you would want that's still out there? And what else do you need to do? Because this roster is guard heavy.
John Collins and Harrison Barnes. That's who I want.
Yeah.
One of them. It's granted now that we don't get Mitchell. Like if Durant is gone, Mitchell stays for another year. It's the same thing that I've been singing for the last 3 days. Marcus Morris, Harrison Barnes, and John Collins. I know the fit would be clunky with Collins and Barnes because of the passes we have, but maybe starting Hero and you get him in more pick and rolls with Collins and Baum. Like I've said this before and I say it again. I just think that a Collins and Baum front court is abusive to the other team because those 2 guys will just be rolling hard to the rim. John Collins actually shoots. Maybe Baum, realizes that, and we've seen the Hero and Baum chemistry. Maybe starting Hero unlocks Baum in a way that we've been begging for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Collins, the Black Falcon, Richard Harrison Barnes, or Marcus Morris. That's who I want.
Brian, rest of the league here and moves that need to be made potentially. Nobody thought the Golden State Warriors were winning a championship last year. So, I mean, this is the league that we're in now. It's not, it's wide open. The Heat thought there were 6 to 8 teams that could win a championship last year. They felt they were one of them. That's why they made the Lowry move. Golden State was not one of them. They had the Lakers and the Nets in there. Okay, obviously those 2 things didn't pan out. But I would think right now that we're still in that 6 to 8, 9 teams that could win a championship at this moment, and we see some of them are reshaping potentially. Phoenix, certainly reshaping. We think Golden State comes back largely intact. The Clippers are certainly a contender. I think that he considered them to be last year if they had just gotten healthy. So look at the rest of the league here. Like, is there a move that another contender can make that just separates itself, right? That just gets out of the pack here. I mean, it's Phoenix with Durant, right? I guess, right? Or was there something else?
Boston with Durant.
I don't think they're doing that. I mean, for Boston, I feel like that would be counterintuitive just because it's like, we swept Kevin Durant. Why do we want to trade for him? You know what I mean? Like, and with the team that they had, it's like, I feel like it's Phoenix getting Kevin Durant. And even then, you would still have questions because the risky thing about big threes, as we've seen in recent years, because, they rarely work. And in a lot of instances, The Nets learned this the hard way. They had their big three, and the team around it wasn't very good and injured. And then on top of that, this past year, you had around their big three, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and Ben Simmons. One of them wasn't even playing, and then everybody else was basically 6'3" shot creators who didn't play defense. So the roster construction of it matters to me also. And Phoenix doesn't have the organizational track record to where it's like, oh, I think they're going to build a great team around Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker. I don't know that. I would trust Miami. I would trust the Raptors if they were in that situation. I would trust a few other organizations, but that's really it. So I don't think, even with Kevin Durant going to Phoenix, which is probably the biggest one, I don't think anybody else would look up and be like, any of the true contenders would look up and be like, oh, we're hopeless. Because again, what we've seen, especially a couple of years ago, things can just break right in your direction. And you honestly do need luck to get to that point. We saw this last year play out, and we saw this the year before, because Milwaukee doesn't have a couple things break their way, perhaps more than a couple. They don't have a championship. Same thing with Phoenix. They probably don't even get out the first round.
Well, Brian, go back to 2019. I mean, the Toronto Raptors essentially won a championship, and no disrespect, okay, but when you say no disrespect, it means you're disrespecting. No disrespect, but they basically won a championship because KD got hurt. I mean, and Clay got hurt. And they, but nobody remembers it. I mean, Kyle Lowry's a champion, right? I mean, Kawhi Leonard won another championship. Certainly he deserved it.
That's why. And that's why there's always value on putting yourself in that position to compete.
Yeah.
It's not like going for broke every single year. It's like you need to put yourself in the position so that you are one move away, or you're just right there. And if the Heat are going to do that again, I mean, we don't know. We have people already freaking out like, oh, is this going to be another offseason where they just get Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless? Free agency's been going on officially for less than an hour. Okay. Yes. Like this is a long process. And as Timmy alluded to last night when we did the stream, and we talked about this with Tony, a lot of big trades don't even happen until August sometimes. The Kyrie Irving deal to the Celtics, that happened very late in the summer.
Kevin Love for Wiggins happened in August.
Before training camp.
James Posey happened in August.
No, they could be late. I want to get to, thanks, Brian. I want to get to some, if there's any super chats, Alejandro, we're going to throw those up here. We do see the comments. We're going to read the super chats. Okay, so throw those up here. Also, again, we do want to mention our fantasy partner, Prize Picks. Use that code 5. That helps sustain us at the network. So if you want to continue content with us, give it a shot. They're going to give you $100 to play with. You got nothing to lose. Use the code 5 at Prize Picks. All right, if Alejandro's got any of them, send them up here on the super chats as we go. Let's. Do we have it? None? Nobody's going to say money?
Super chats. No new super chats.
I thought we saw one. Tony, you messaged me at 6:51 that there was a super chat. Nobody's got it back there?
That was a long time ago from Jay, I think.
Let me go back.
I don't know if we ever got
All right,
to it.
Let's see if we can find them. We're going to get to them. Somebody said in here, this is a Harkless Bradley offseason. I don't think it's that. I really don't. I don't think it's that. A couple names that came up here in the chat. I will read them, but like I said, we're going to get to the super chats first. Danilo Gallinari is somebody that's been discussed here. I do not really understand the Heat's fascination with him. That's always confused. I understand the skill set. I get it. But he's never healthy.
They have younger Gallinari on the roster now.
We have Gallo at home. You have Gallo at home.
Plus, Gallinari made Dwayne bleed his own blood. Oh, that's the one we wanted from James. Is weed legal in Arizona? It's legal here. I know that.
Gallinari's appears to be Boston bound in terms of they're the favorite.
Oh, that makes sense.
It appears so. Can somebody look that up? Do we have an Intrepid Weed Reporter? We sell CBD. We don't sell weed, unfortunately. We sell CBD. Therapist preferred. Use that code F5RSN. Get 25% off.
I'm actually shocked.
Our monetization is going to be partial. There you go.
I was going to say, is it legal in Arizona? It's not legal in Arizona. That's
an Intrepid Weed Report.
That's it. We're going to hire an Intrepid Weed Report. We need somebody in
their stream would be the pot leaf with the 5 in front of it.
I'm actually surprised. You know I'll sell anything. Well, maybe not anything. I don't know. But all right. Well, let's go. Here, this comes in for Sal Soprano. We love these comments. You thank us and you give us money. Thanks for your hard work, team. I love the coverage videos like this. I love the off the floor updates. Greg, if you want to hit off the floor at all, I've been posting a couple things on there. We do mention our off the floor feed. We've gotten about 100 subscriptions in the last week. So go to Winnow. It's Winnow, WINNO.app, and it's off the floor. That's our feed. So Winnow, WINNO.app, off the floor. Let's see some of the comments. Here we go. Alfredo, our guy Alfredo for 3 yards per carry. Alfredo says that they do allow in Arizona up to 5 milligrams of weed. So as long as you keep it light, you're good. KD's been open about this. It's not illegal in the NBA anymore either. So you can. It never was, but whatever. You can. That's fine. All right, let's get to. Here's one we haven't talked about, and I'm going to reset here a little bit. I'll probably try to pop back on here before we go. But Caleb Martin is somebody we have not talked about a whole lot. It is kind of the Heat's one piece of outstanding business now that Oladipo and Dedmon are back and Tucker is gone. I'll go to you first on this, Brady, and then Tony. If the investment in Caleb, would be worth it, right? But this kind of feels like you tell him to wait, right?
Yeah, like if you can get him on good value, like I think you go all for it. Like I'm a big fan of what Caleb Martin can provide. An athletic body. He's one of their few actual athletes on this roster. There was a good things he did. But it basically comes down to it depends on what the roster looks like. And that's what comes back to what you just said about waiting, because let's just say they have the Avery Bradley Mo Harkless offseason as everybody's screaming. There's not really much room for him to plug in. Like he's the guy to slide into certain spots, we could say, or maybe he replaces some minutes for somebody sliding in at the power forward for losing PJ Tucker. But there just doesn't seem like a major role for him. Like ideally, if you bring him back and you make a trade and then you have less guys on the roster because you sent more out for, let's just say, Donovan Mitchell, hypothetically, there's a major role for Caleb Martin because he has a decently sized bench role that's going to be there all season into the playoffs. But the question becomes, what is the roster going to look like? He was pretty adamant, interesting in the exit interviews about playing like PJ Tucker. Like he kept bringing up the name PJ Tucker over and over, saying that he wants to do some of the things he can do and be a facilitator and more of a screener and all those things. I didn't think he'd actually be doing PJ Tucker's job exactly that PJ Tucker's out the door. So that makes it a little bit interesting. If he can do some of the things PJ can do, that'd be intriguing on the contract that he gets because it'll be incredible value. But it'll come down to, I guess, like I said, just the way the roster looks like at that time.
Yeah, muted.
You're muted again, Ethan.
Talking to myself. I don't know where Greg went. Appreciate the work. Thank you. Andrew's been one of our biggest supporters.
Greg said he had to leave.
All right, Greg had to leave. All right,
Hey,
you know what?
Could be a call. Could be something,
I could be sorry. I have to do a little of that myself, okay? And also I have to pick someone up at the Miami airport a little bit later. So I'm just going to let the three for you guys free for all here a little bit, and I'll come back. Alejandro, let him know in the chat that we've got a spot. So see if anybody wants to jump in here. I know we've got some others.
I think Alex is coming.
Alex.
I think Alex already said he's coming.
Tomorrow? I just busted. That's it's all love. He's on that time, that time down here. Alex is on that Miami time, which is amazing because he's driven Ubers and Lyfts. Like literally, I love Alex. I do a lot of things for Alex. I would not get a Lyft or Uber from him because it might come next week. So anyway, just to reset before I go, Victor Oladipo is back. PJ Tucker is gone. Dwayne Dedmon is back. I don't think it's for very long. That's my thought on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think this is Myers Leonard too. And beyond that, Joe Ingles has signed with Milwaukee. Batum has gone back to the Clippers. Mo Bamba.
Lonnie Walker just went to the Lakers.
I kind of like that for them. I like him.
I would have liked him here.
I'm gonna go pick up KD. Yeah, I'm gonna go pick up KD. I don't know. I DM him on one of his burner accounts. All right, you guys go for it. Alex is coming in here next week. I'll pop back in here at some point in the before this show is over. Thanks, guys.
You know what, Ethan? All right, you know what Ethan had asked me that was a little concerning. Like, what other contender could get a player that changes the league dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Dallas is pretty much out of maneuverability now since Jalen Brunson is clearly not going to do sign and trade stuff with them. But if Dallas could have found a way to get Gobert, I think that would have been scary as hell to me. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I mean, yeah, but I think at this point, and Wolves just actually reported that He is armed with Jalen Brunson. He's armed with a 5-year, $106+ million offer and is headed to a meeting with the Knicks within the hour. And it was already reported earlier that he had agreed to a 106 or 104 deal with the Knicks. So I'm not sure, but I think that's something like if you're the Heat or if you're anybody else, you don't have to worry about that. You just need to be able to, work around the margins or whatever the case may be. I think honestly, more stuff has already happened tonight than I expected. I thought KD was going to hold a lot of this up. But what we're mostly seeing is mid-level stuff and teams like, the Pistons keeping Marvin Bagley and things like that. Like, they're not going to be in the Kevin Durant business. Like, there's few teams that probably aren't, but they're one of them. The Spurs are not going to be in that either. So I just think that, like, we're going to start seeing more moves, I think, at some point. But I think a lot of the big stuff, like John Collins, Donovan Mitchell, some of those big trade targets, a lot of that might just be on hold now because Kevin Durant, a lot of teams want to be in the Kevin Durant business. And if you strike a trade for John Collins or Donovan Mitchell right now, that takes you out of it. For John Collins, I'm not sure if if you want to just take that and not be involved in that thing. But for me, it's like I'm taking Donovan Mitchell if that offer presents itself, or if the agreement presents itself, rather.
Brady, there's not too many teams that they can trade KD for straight up, right? You feel like a lot of these trades that they would have to do involve 2 or 3 teams. Can you think of anybody that they would be able to make this deal happen straight? And if it is a 3 or 4 team deal, do you think there's any middling pieces like John Collins, Harrison Barnes? Do you think that anybody could get those players involved in that?
It's interesting. Like, it depends on what Brooklyn wants, because Brooklyn, it feels like they go in 2 different ways where they say they either want a superstar like Devin Booker, like who wouldn't, or they just want to fully rebuild and get a bunch of draft assets and fully go down the other way. So it's like there's no middle ground here. And it feels like where the Heat are sitting is kind of in the middle ground area where they have a nice asset in Tyler Hero. They have limited draft picks, and maybe they can acquire more if they send certain guys out if they think Kevin Durant is a for sure guy to come in. But other than that, they're pretty much in that middle ground stage. So I don't really know how a 3-team, 4-team trade would work in that instance, because that starts getting complicated, and I don't feel like thinking about that right now. But the John Collins stuff in general of a 3-team trade, like, I feel like that's something they could get in on. I think it depends. I don't know why the Hawks – I want to see a Hawks backcourt of Duncan Robinson and Trae Young, because Jimmy's going to tear that apart in the first round. Like, if – I know Dejounte Murray's going to start, but if they have that on the floor at any time, like, those are 2 of one of the weaker guards defenders in the league. Like, that is just – I don't know how you play that if you're Atlanta. But I guess they can kind of make it work when you talk about teams that could use Duncan. Like, I know we keep talking about contenders, but they just made a win-now move, and to get Dejounte Murray, they just made that move and cashed in a bunch of draft picks. I think it makes sense in that way, especially if they're moving on from some of their shooters. So it depends, but I totally agree. Like I said this earlier, that I agree with Brian what he said, and I agree again. The Donovan Mitchell thing feels like if that presents itself, you don't push that to the side to go get Kevin Durant. Like, I think you get Donovan Mitchell. I've been really in on Donovan Mitchell. I think he does a lot of things well. Compare it to the Tyler Hero stuff. Like, if Tyler Hero gets doubled in blitz, it kind of gets taken out of the equation. If Donovan Mitchell gets doubled or blitz, he says, get out the way. I'm going one-on-one and I don't need a screen and I'm going to take over right now. Like, that's the difference maker right there. And another primary thing that I'll just add in is an interesting stat this season was Tyler Hero in the playoffs. Like, his numbers decreased at the rim. The attempts around the rim, like when he has those crafty, nice finishes in the regular season, that was not happening in the playoffs. It just wasn't the case. Every season, I think Donovan Mitchell's in his 5th year. I could be wrong. All 5 seasons, his attempts less than 10 feet from the basket have gone up from regular season to playoffs. Like, that is not an easy thing to do, but that's a playoff player. That's a win now player. And that's a guy that you could say, I'm going to give the ball to. We want a star level, 3-level scorer. So if that guy's sitting there, like, you get Donovan Mitchell, which I think everybody could agree on.
Yeah, I'm taking Donovan in a heartbeat. I'm not going to sit there and wait to see what happens with Kevin, because the fit, it's too perfect. It's too perfect for what we need. It's too perfect to help complete the team. Robert right here says, great work, guys. Exciting stuff. But what's the doomsday scenario? And to me, the doomsday scenario is starting to play itself out just a little bit. You see guys like Lonnie Walker right here going for 6.5 to the Lakers, right? That would be a perfect biannual exception, dude. It just fills a great role, has a lot of value, can fit right into one of the exceptions. I think for me, my doomsday scenario is we're playing these games and we start losing out on all these dudes that will fit into the exceptions that are going to be picked up by contenders that are overpaid because we're not even offering them the chance to come here at the moment because we don't know what's going on with our salary and what's happening with our players. But Brian, you first. What's your doomsday scenario for this Miami Heat offseason? What's the worst case? How pissed are you if blank happens?
I just started laughing because Alfredo in the comments said the Heat are trying to re-sign Haslem to a 1-year deal for Tim Reynolds. What do you mean trying to?
I missed my tweet.
What's the they should just get it. Like
it's gonna be an intense interview when he gets there. They're gonna go back and forth.
There can't be much of a negotiation. Just come on, man. But the doomsday scenario for me is Kyrie. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to
do. I mean, that is kind of a doomsday scenario, but we don't have to get into the non-bat because people just want to focus on the basketball portion of it, and it's never just about basketball. If you're talking just about basketball, take away the other stuff, then fine, it works. But it's not going to be about basketball, and it hasn't been for years, and I don't want to get into that whole thing again. The doomsday scenario is basically teams around you just get incrementally better, and you don't. Whatever it takes. Like you try to make all these things happen and you don't. And sometimes it does happen. They try to take swings. What was it? Last summer? No, the summer before that. Or it wasn't the summer, it was the winter because we were all distorted because of COVID. And they ended up running it back and having Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. And that's really it, is if you get a couple guys that should work out on paper that don't. Trevor Ariza as well. And those aren't bad players, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out here. And Avery Bradley was more of a luck sort of thing. Like he actually looked okay in the 10 games he played, but then he got hurt and he got COVID for a long time. And then they had to use him in the Victor Oladipo deal anyway. So I guess it ended up working out from that perspective. And you traded Kelly Olynyk too. But I think that, look, people have to realize like this stuff is not just going to move at the speed they want it to. It takes some time to really build out a roster. And look, Caleb Martin was somebody that I'm not even going to read that. Caleb Martin was somebody that at the end of like September, mid-September, right before training camp, they found him, gave him a 2-way contract, and was one of their most impactful finds, during the season. Like this is something that's going to be a process. I do think that you want to see encouraging signs sooner rather than later, sure. But I think that's just people's impatience and not willing to like give the process like what it deserves, because this is not easy. And obviously, and people think that like Pat and them are being lazy, but that's not the case. They're trying, and sometimes it just takes a while.
Let me give Brady 2 seconds for his doomsday scenario. Alex, we'll kick it to you and talk about your impressions of what you thought. But what's your doomsday scenario, Brady? What's the worst case that you could leave this offseason with?
I just want to say, it looks like Alex got that max deal right at 6. Like it just hit right away.
Looking high voltage ceilings. I bet you that voice echoes in there.
Look, man, I'm looking for a sectional, so you let me know where I can get one, Alex.
Ethan was at my door. I will report that Ethan was at my door at 6 p.m. to start free agency. Just like the Heat, reportedly sent a delegation of employees to pitch to UD. Ethan did something like that, but it was just himself and Brady on FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
And nice sign.
Well, I'll just go into what we were saying before that. I would say the biggest doomsday thing is that you waited out for Kevin Durant. He goes to Phoenix and Donovan Mitchell doesn't ask out. Like if that's kind of the least ideal scenario. Like the two big fish that you're looking at don't end up being on the market at all, that you don't really even have a chance at it. And then all of a sudden we're a little bit into the future, and a lot of the kind of the outsider pickups that you wanted to make are off the market as well. Like that's kind of the idea. Like maybe the 4s that you wanted to look at, like we just saw a bunch of trades that were made and they're off the market now. Mo Bamba is a potential guy. Maybe John Collins ends up being thrown to another team. And now you're sitting there and saying, we have to go all in on Jay Crowder, not as our backup 4, but as our starting 4, because we kind of waited it out. And that's the idea of what happened before. And that's what I think everybody is afraid of with the Harkless Avery Bradley thing, because that's settling. Like, it's not that you can't get role players, because I think you need a lot of these role players on decent prices. But when you're settling in that way because there's nothing else sitting there, like that becomes problematic. But ideally, I guess somebody's going to break free, because we're talking about like what, 5 different people that could potentially have something happen, that one of them is going to break free and Miami's going to have a shot at it. So if in the weird scenario where none of them do, that's kind of worst case scenario.
So you've had a chance, Alex, to sit back, not be on stream, kind of digest all of this stuff properly, man. What's some of your impressions? What were some of the things you were hoping to see? Have you seen them yet? Where are we getting with the off season for you so far?
Once the PJ stuff started, it was already, my expectations started to shift after I was so confident that they were going to bring him back. So I was prepared for that. And despite all that, it still hit when I saw that tweet that it was official that he was going back to the Sixers. It just, how I feel about the Sixers.
Wait till he's in the Philly jersey.
Oh, stop it, Brady. Why do you do this to me, man?
Bro. Oh.
Brady's just trying to make me feel bad because that is going to be bad. Point. He's going to look terrible in that. And I hope, respectfully that it doesn't work out for him. So I understand. I understand why you got your money, PJ. It sucks that the Heat didn't pay up because really, if they did, I think he would have came back. So it's like I'm a little bit frustrated with him, a little bit frustrated with the Heat. But you know what? I'm supposed to be an objective journalist. It sucks. It's a bad move for the Heat if you're just looking at it from that perspective, right? On the court, I think they're going to have a lot of pressure to kind of put a Band-Aid on the 4 position now because they really don't have any on the court. I mean, on the roster other than Jimmy Butler, who is not a primary power forward. So all of a sudden, we know that they're obviously trying to work out this KD Kyrie stuff that happened today, but I don't know. Like the Heat seem like they're active on all layers, but everything is also on hold because of the Nets guys. So I'm glad they're active. The PJ thing sucks, and Depot and Dedmon coming back so quickly re-signed me because I was kind of assuming both of them might be gone too. So that's cool.
Yeah, getting those guys back under contract and having the flexibility for more cap salary movement on our team is going to be important going forward. I just kind of think, like, to Brady's point earlier about you're looking at 4s now, if all of this starts to go south, that could have been secondary pieces to a real starter if you would have made a move sooner that could now potentially be your starter. That's where losing PJ hurts the most because at least if you could have signed PJ with salary, that you still had cap flexibility and you had a guy that was under contract that could potentially be a starting forward for you. So losing him was really painful for everybody.
I wonder if, because again, like we established with Greg a little while ago before he got off, these moves still aren't official yet.
Not signed.
Because they're not signed. And that's why when I saw Dedmon re-sign, and not for the minimum, but when I saw it in particularly for 2 years and $9 million, and I'm assuming the second year is probably an option or not fully guaranteed or whatever the case may be, I immediately said that's a trade piece. And when I saw Victor Oladipo at 1 year, $11 million, I immediately said that's a trade piece. We've seen reports and we've heard smoke about maybe they can still get in on the DeJounte Murray deal and make it a 3-way. And I still think John Collins is somebody that's interesting there because could they use those contracts or somebody else like Duncan Robinson, whatever the case may be. But like Depot's getting 11, Dedmon's going to get 4.5 or whatever, something along those lines. Duncan Robinson's getting whatever he's getting, 16, 17-ish. You see, like, Tony, you're smiling because like you start putting these numbers together. I assume, I don't know if they're all going to leave in terms of Depot or both of them in terms of Depot and Dedmon, but it just feels like they're gearing up for some sort of trade at some point, and it doesn't have to be signed. It could still turn into a sign and trade. It's just a matter of putting the actual trade together, and I think that's something to watch out for as we're waiting patiently to see what else happens.
I'm going to be really honest with you. I wasn't smiling at whatever the hell you were just saying. I'm sure it was really important and really smart. I was smiling at it looked like Alex's furniture all got bought at a Rooms to Go, but sponsored by Pottery Barn. That's what everything in that house.
Shout out to Ben in the comments.
Like.
He said Alex doing the show from an El Dorado furniture showroom.
Yeah.
Basically, Tony. I think John Collins is still in play. We'll see.
In terms the numbers make sense, right? They just have to be separate transactions. You can't do 2 sign and trade guys on one transaction, right?
But even if it's not Oladipo or Dedmon, and like you can end up flipping one of them, they still have Duncan Robinson. Obviously, you're 7, and they can still put something together if they want to get into John Collins' game, which is what they were allegedly trying to do at some point. We'll see.
Look, keep sending these super chat comments. Give us your best jokes. Give us your best questions. Anything you send, we're going to make sure to read. Joe B, hypothetically, what would the Heat lineup have to look like for you to not be disappointed with Jimmy getting traded? And I'm going to go ahead and guess it is Jimmy getting traded for Kevin Durant, because that's the only thing I think that anybody would be willing to move Jimmy for. I don't know how you guys feel. Would Jimmy go for Donovan Mitchell right now in your minds?
No, absolutely.
So it has to be Kevin. So if it's Kevin and Jimmy's not involved, what would that lineup start to look like? You got Kevin Durant, you got Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. Is Yurtseven gone, or is he here still?
They're not trading Jimmy. Like, they're just not.
Yeah, it's almost
you
no
know
point.
What I mean? Like, I don't think that they're gonna do that, because the whole point, I think, would be to team Kevin Durant up with Jimmy and Bam. I just don't know if they're gonna have enough to do it. But in terms of, could we put the question back up in terms of answering this question? I want to know what Brady and Alex think about this, actually. Like from a basketball perspective.
I just want to say, for one, like, why would Kevin Durant want to go to a team where it's just one other star if he just did that? Like, I know it's a totally different scenario. Like, the guy was out. Like, the guy was not playing for most of the time, but they was playing in the playoffs when they just got swept. I just don't think he wants to relive that. Like, I think the goal is to get traded to a team where he won championships. The place he won championships was a team. I know they're not rebuilding any type of Warriors team, but that's the ideal thing. If we're talking hypotheticals and they did trade Jimmy, which once again, I'll reiterate, like, I don't see being possible. I guess in that scenario, you keep Bam. So you have a Bam, Kevin Durant front court, and you have your minimums, I guess, that are still on the roster of Gabe and Max, and you kind of roll the dice there. But, like, still, it's just, even with that squad right there, it's just two guys and a bunch of other role players, and it's just so similar to what he just did and lost with. So I don't think, let's just say, the Heat would want to do that and under any capacity of trading Jimmy. But I just also don't see why KD would want to do that. I know it was reported before or talked about that KD is kind of a big Bam guy. So, of course, like, if Bam's the guy being thrown in these trades, what would he want to go to the Miami Heat for if he's being traded for Bam Adebayo? He's the guy he kind of wants to play with in that scenario. And I would guess, as much as we just talked about earlier about playing with Chris Paul and kind of stepping to the side, I would guess that he would want to play with Devin Booker. Like, that would be the guy he'd want to play with out of anybody. So that's where this stuff gets dicey. And like we were talking about earlier, this is all setting the bar. Like when they were talking about, I think it was the Kyrie Irving situation, and the Miami basically said, and there was something reported that Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero are off the table in this scenario. Like, it's just setting the bar early on. As things begin to move a little bit quicker, things change, the bar lowers. So that's what I kind of expect here. But I guess to answer that question, I can't even think of a lineup where people would not be disappointed, I guess, if it's KD and a bunch of role players and Bam, I guess.
And so to that point, because it would just be Gabe, Max, maybe Caleb, if you could re-sign Caleb, then Kevin and Bam. But let's go to David's comment here in the chat. It says, can y'all walk me through our chances to get KD? What can we offer? Alex, what would an offer for Kevin Durant even look like?
So, like Brady was talking about, I don't think Jimmy or Bam would be involved in a potential trade for Kevin Durant. Obviously, we don't know that for sure, but I think an offer from the Heat would be Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, possibly Duncan. Then you'll probably see guys like Omer, Highsmith thrown in to help make the salaries work. Jovic, the guy that they picked up in the draft. 3 first-round picks. I believe they could trade as many pick swaps as they can trade. 2 seconds. Everything that they can throw that is not named Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, they will throw. And it seems like the Suns can offer more. They have more picks to offer. I think that's the case, but the Suns have to actually make a sign and trade with Aiden and the Nets work out. So it's like multiple parties would need to agree. Who knows if Aiden would be willing to work with them and wants to help them, land a guy like Kevin Durant. For all we know, he doesn't want to play for the Nets, even if they're willing to pay him. Maybe another team is willing to pay him. He'd rather play for. So even if the Suns on paper look like they have the better offer, it feels like there's still a lot up in the air. That being said, I would, when the news first came out that there was a Kevin Durant trade request, we were all shocked. Immediately, my head went to the Suns before that tweet came out where it was Suns and Heat. So it's like I had no expectations. All of a sudden, I did, So now I think it would be, really disappointing for a lot of Heat fans if it didn't happen. But, you're back in the game for a superstar like Durant. It's it's always fun to be a part of this roller coaster, especially when we thought that all of this had come to a halt the other day with Kyrie opting in, because not only now is KD available and you're one of the 2 teams listed by Woj, but Kyrie is probably going to be available next, right? Because he was signing up to play with KD. So now everything is very fun again, but also feels like, it might just be my paranoia. It's going to lead to inevitable disappointment. But the Heat feel like they have a real shot, and that's a lot better than I thought they would be in, because I was not expecting anything having to do with them and KD. So I'm just glad they're even here right now.
What's hurt the most, Brian? Out of all the people who have signed so far today, who's kind of hit you with who's hurt the most to not see on the Miami Heat?
Oh, I wanted them to experiment with Mo Bamba and Bam for sure.
Yeah.
And, I'm not doing the Bam as a 4. I'm not doing that shit. All right. Bamba, Bam, whatever. Basketball is becoming positionless. Who cares? Eric Spoelstra will probably tell you that too. But Mo Bamba is somebody who, next to Bam, if you're going to switch them, and we're going to get to this comment in a second, if you're going to switch Bam as much as you do, having somebody on the interior who is not 6'5", would probably help. And Mo Bamba is a very good shot blocker. He's raw, he's talented, and I think Spo would mold him into somebody who's kind of Miles Turner-ish, which is, I think, a kind of big next to Bam that would intrigue me, who could stretch the floor and who could be a force on the interior defensively. But he's going back to Orlando for 221, and, maybe we could revisit that in a couple of years.
All right, so we're going to get the Corb's comment here because it's been hanging around for a while. It says, what was the strategy behind Durant requesting a trade hours before free agency? What's the advantage? He clearly knew he was going this route. And I'm going to be honest. Here's my theory. Y'all can chew this apart if you want to. Kyrie requested help for a trade, right? He asked Kevin to put out a statement, leak something, say something. Somebody from somebody say Kevin might leave too if Kyrie doesn't get the deal he wants. All right. Kyrie eventually came back to the table and was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm staying. I'm going to opt in. And Kevin was like, damn. I was really hoping he was going to go. And then he put his name out there to be traded because honestly, I don't think Kevin has any leverage in this right now. He's not up against the end of his contract. He's just a star player that could be disgruntled and not play, but I don't know how much leverage he has. But you guys go ahead and take swings at that too. What do you think Kevin has to gain from doing this a couple hours before the free agency market?
I mean, go ahead, Brady.
I was going to say that it had something to do with like immediately after the Kyrie stuff came out, there wasn't like a formal report about Kevin Durant leaving, but there was stuff basically saying that the Nets were rather go next year, basically trading the two, than come back and redo what they did this past season. And then that basically flipped because all of a sudden Kyrie Irving's back. And now Kevin Durant just all of a sudden even though he didn't formally ask out or anything, Kevin Durant's just good about it. Like he just had nothing to say. So I can agree with that, I guess, to a point that I don't think maybe he didn't expect that. And I think he still has kind of moved on from what just happened. Like we joke around. I know a lot of people joke around about what Kevin Durant did and went to the Warriors, but like he just got swept with a pretty bad roster overall. Like I know they ran into the Celtics who just went to the finals, but it was a pretty bad roster that they were out there on the floor with. Like it was the same weak defender build that was just out there getting picked on no matter who was on the floor. It was just a revolving door of a rotating thing. So now he asks out formally. I just don't know. I think you could probably speak to the timing of it. I don't really know if it had anything to do with the timing of it. Like maybe it did because it is ironic that happened 3 hours, as he said, before free agency started. But I don't know if that makes it harder or worse with like the Ayton stuff and all that stuff. Because as much as they threw in Miami, I think it's pretty clear that Phoenix is like the number one in terms of what we saw even before that they're the ideal landing spot because of what they have. And he has a past of going to teams that just lost in the finals, which I guess tends to Miami as well. And he looked at the standings and saw Phoenix and Miami both as the 1 seed. So it was just like an easy, I guess, pick for what he's used to when he leaves a team. But I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how the timing of it plays into this, but it just doesn't feel – I don't know how they recovered from the point that when they said that they'd rather kind of rebuild than go back into what they just did. And then Kyrie opts in and they're like, okay, because Kyrie opted in, we'll just go back to what we did. So none of it really made sense, I guess, from the get-go.
At the very least, Alex, it's been really entertaining, right? Like all of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's just fun to be a part of the roller coaster, man. I was not expecting this at all. You just, you get that little bit of dopamine, and all of a sudden everything is fun, and you get that rush, and it's like, wow, the Heat might, they're right back in the mix for a superstar. Like everybody, like the pipe dreams going into this offseason were Beal, Mitchell, maybe Levine, then Kyrie kind of became one. And then all of a sudden, we thought, like I said, it came to a halt. And then we're talking about Kevin Durant all of a sudden, saying he wants to play for the Suns of the Heat. Like, it's awesome, right? Even it would be disappointing if they don't get him. But like I said, it's fun to be a part of this for sure.
The dopamine hit was crazy. When the Kevin Durant tweet came in,
did you see? We got a comment here. Shout out Passenger 7. He said something that Brian Windhorst said on ESPN. The Miami Heat have been preparing for this for several days regarding Kevin Durant's trade demand.
Hey, Brian, here you go, man.
They knew that shit was gonna fall apart.
The funny thing is, I remember a few days ago when he said something along the lines of like the Miami move is to wait this Kyrie stuff out and then wait for it all to blow over and then get Kevin Durant. That's exactly what's happened. Like pretty much to exact T.
How do you explain this in the basketball history context, man?
I just want to read another funny tweet. This is from Stephen LeBron, who said, Kyrie really said normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. And Kevin Durant said, tomorrow I'm requesting a trade to a different team. Oh man, but look, I mean that doesn't surprise me. Like you can see the blow up coming. I was somebody who, when they assembled the team, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna necessarily work because DeAndre Jordan was clearly washed. Kyrie is a super wild card, and Kevin Durant, who then was post Achilles, I was kind of like, don't know how he's gonna come back. And when he comes back and plays, he's awesome. But he's also missed a bunch of games over the last couple of years. He's going to be entering year 16. This coming season. So I think this is why the Nets asking price could be somewhat ridiculous, because it's like, this isn't Kevin Durant from 2012 or even 2017. He's still awesome, but there are some injury concerns there that you have as he's approaching 34, 35, whatever it is at this point. Still, you're going to have to give up a lot. But at the same time, look, I think that for me, I still want to see, because we've just got a big lull here where like nothing's going on. It's like it was a big rush for those 40 minutes, as you said, Tony. Yeah, everybody was shooting shit in their arms and celebrating, and now it's just nothing. I think something's like this happened before. This happened, I think, last year or the year before, where like it was quiet for a while, and right before everybody goes to bed, something happens where it was a big signing or a big trade. And I think given this front office and their history, whatever the case may be, I think they're going to pull something off. I just don't know what it is. And them re-signing Dwayne Dedmon and Victor Oladipo to start this was not how I would have had it. It was very interesting to me, but I feel like they're up to something. I just don't know what it is yet.
Man, Bo might be going to the Warriors. This guy is saying that's kind of crazy. It's a big event right there.
Whoa.
Well, he went to school in Oregon? So it's not that far from there, I guess. I don't know.
Look, here's a great chance for me to tell my Bo story in better depth. So when I went to Summer League last year, right, there was a bunch of kids, like 14, 15-year-olds, and I bet you can guess their ethnicity. But they were like, yo, Bobo's the best. He's better than LeBron. Look at him. He can never miss. Proceeds to miss every single bucket at Summer League, right? And then the guy sitting next to me is from New York, like you, Brian. So we know he had to say something at this point. And he's yelling at Bobo while he's over there on the bench. And he's like, your fans, you're letting them down, right? Just talking, chattering. Bobo eventually turns around to this guy. And Bobo goes, and we're only like 2 rows away. And dude's sitting right next to me. So I'm worried I'm getting kicked out at this point. Bobo goes, bro, I am only 21. And at that point right there, I knew. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to make it, bro. You're not going to make it. If you're worried about guy heckling you over this, it's not happening. That's the Bobo story from Summer League, man. Brian, take host for 10 minutes. I need a breather. No, you. That's you.
All right, moving right
2
along.
hours already that you guys have been on, right?
Yeah,
man. We've been moving.
I don't know how much.
To be honest with you, Alex, I'm going to get some wine, dude. I'm walking away to go get some wine. This has been crazy.
We could end the stream if you really, really want to. I mean, like,
I'm good to go, man. I'm just trying to get you to push the conversation, or we should take questions.
Alejandro, what do you think?
We can go as long as you guys want. Look at Brady. Brady's ready to do something.
And thank you, Asher, for the donation.
We can keep reading comments, whatever you want.
We got $5 there.
We might as well take questions before we close if we are going to close.
Actually, yeah, let's take some. Thank you, Asher, for that. All right, let's take some questions. Good at this. Mo Bombado, thank you, Anthony. I'm disappointed in that. Mitchell to Miami. I think the Donovan Mitchell thing is something that, like, I mean, Greg's talked about it. Y'all have talked about it. I think the Donovan Mitchell thing, like, that's the one for me, where in terms of realism, in terms of them putting together a legitimate package, because I think KD, I'm not sure if they have enough to sort of wow the Nets there without getting a third team involved. They're evidently prepared for that, but the Donovan Mitchell one is most interesting to me. Let's take a question that we could actually spend a couple minutes on. What would a Heat roster with KD even look like? I mean, Alex, you kind of alluded to this before. There ain't going to be a lot left, but you should have Jimmy, Bam, and KD at the very least. And you may keep like a Gabe Vincent and a couple other guys like that.
Yeah, that's about it. The roster will be gutted very similarly to what they did when they acquired Braun and Bosch, re-signed Wade. It's just what you got to do. Like, it's the Heat are not a team with cap space. You know, we've been talking about them avoiding the hard cap. They're, you know, it's been talked about. They're always, or, you know, they've been top 10 in payroll or higher for the past few years. They always are. So they're not a team that generally operates with cap space unless it's very intentional, right? Like, so they're in the business of getting off of all these people. And I think it's just like, well, you figure it out when you get there, right? We cross that bridge when you get there. You worry about getting Durant first. You worry about getting a Mitchell first. Not that I, you know, even think he's available. The stuff that came out, Leif and also the other Jazz reporter that had pointed that out a couple days ago. I don't know why that got aggregated today, by the way, because Leif had already said it on 5 on the floor. But I don't know that Mitchell's actually available, whereas KD actually is, right? So the point being, you know, you do what you can to bring those guys in and worry about filling out the rest of the roster later. And that's just kind of what it comes down to, man.
And they always have success with undrafted guys. Like, they literally always have. And I know I'm not saying to rely on that, but Orlando Robinson will be their backup big, and he'll be the next guy that's in line for a deal. Amari Boye or Javonte Smart will be the backup point guard, and everybody will be talking about how they kill their favorite teams. Like, they figure out ways. So, like, if there's a team to figure this out with, I guess, filling out a roster, they'll just translate their summer league team onto their regular team, at least to fill certain spots. And it'll be the Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin show, like, all over again. So I just feel like there's confidence, I guess, in their developmental program, I guess, in their scouting group, that they'll figure at least that aspect out.
And they'll have Depot and Dedmon.
Right. I mean, maybe
Kate want to buy
annual. I mean, I guess in that scenario, you would keep Oladipo, right? Like, you're not including him in that specific deal. So I guess let's just say they end up making that deal. Like, if you're sitting there with, I guess, Jimmy, KD, and Bam, and then you have Oladipo at the 2, it doesn't matter who else is on the roster. Like, you can fill that out from there because that's a pretty good starting 4, I guess you could say. Okay.
Juan Toscano Anderson's going to the Lakers. I think that was somebody that Greg mentioned that the Miami Heat could be interested in. I don't know how much he would have benefited.
Would have been a great cultural fit, I think, in Miami.
I think so too. You just wish he had some more 3-pointers. If you're,
I was making a Hispanic joke because his name is Juan. Is he even Hispanic?
He's Mexican. Yeah, he plays for the Mexican national.
That's right. He's Mexican.
Juan Toscano. Yeah.
So now they got
the Lakers are a better
Jr. They got Torrey Brown Jr.
wait, no, that was Alex had a. We can let that sit for a second. Go ahead, Tony Cook.
Lakers got Lonnie Walker, Torrey Brown Jr., and now Juan Toscano. So they're filling out the bottom of that roster, right? They have to run
filling
it back.
out the top.
Yeah, they got to run that back. Ain't nothing we can do. By the way, Alex, we're clipping that. I want you to know that.
Yeah, I think the Lakers might be the Kyrie Irving team, but we'll see. Let's get to Christian here. Any chance Riley moves Jimmy? And no, they're not moving Jimmy. I really doubt. You got Brady, Alex. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
And it's not possible because I think it said
No.
Mitchell, KD, and Bam. Like all the assets you're using to get KD, you'd use to get Mitchell. So it's not really possible anyway.
All right. Nico Cuevas says, is this Mitchell offer just to push the Nets to make a decision on a Heat offer? Huh.
I think the Mitchell thing came before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Greg had said it was from before.
And they were we know that they were circling Mitchell before that. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't think so. The Jazz.
But also, they were. Oh man,
I gotta watch that movie.
For KD for days, right? So who knows?
I gotta watch that movie, Hustle.
You still haven't watched Hustle, man?
No, I still haven't watched it yet.
Oh my god,
I've been playing video games.
Did Hernan Gomez show you anything in the movie?
I've been playing Red
translate?
Dead Redemption 2. It was on.
He's an unrestricted right now, Herman Gomez. Just saying.
Anything that stood out in the movie that you think would translate to the Heat's rotation?
I can't answer that.
He'd be a perfect rim protector next to Bam. That's all I'll say.
I think
Why is his name Bo? Why is his name Bo?
The perfect front court partner next to Bam.
Bo was not a good name for him.
They could have picked like a more Latino name or Hispanic name. Just
Bo.
from Spain. You know what I'm saying?
I've never met a Hispanic Bo in my life.
Right. Like even if it was Billy Cruz or Guillermo, but Billy, that would have made a little more sense. Bo? Come on, man. All right, Alejandro, pull up a question. You pulled up a bunch. I'm like, we keep talking over them. Nebyat Mamo says, "Is Mikal Bridges worth giving up for Kevin Durant?"
Nope. I was thinking to not do it. Don't do it, Suns.
What about
yes is the actual answer, but I know what Alex is doing there. Go ahead, Tony.
What about the Hornets? Do the Hornets have a KD package? Like, is there enough interesting assets there for them to go?
Do they have one without LaMelo Ball?
Does he want to play there?
I don't think he'd want to play there, right? He wouldn't. There's no reason. Or Memphis. Like, Memphis could make an interesting package, but he would never want to play there. But he doesn't really have, like, any sway in this.
Charlotte's got bigger things to worry about in regards to Miles Bridges in that situation. So we can move on from that. Candace, if KD comes here and we win, they're going to say KD carried Jimmy, though. Am I right? One, I don't know. Two, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? We got Chip.
Like,
let them say whatever. Let them say whatever.
Right. Like they already talked down on the LeBron big three. Like who cares?
And KD's gonna get talked down for wherever he goes right now. By the way, like he's already very disliked, and the fact that he's already bailed on this thing. Like, come on,
Alejandro Cruz. That's Alejandro Cruz. I mean, that sounds more like a striker, but like I'm with that. You know what I mean? I'm with that. All right, JC says, would you take Simmons to... No, I'm done with that question. Nope. Moving on. Anthony, Slim Reaper at Miami will be fired. We don't actually think it's going to happen, do we? All right, let's go around the chat. Scale of 1 to 10, Brady first. How much do you think this Kevin Durant scenario can actually happen? Scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, to Miami? Or you're saying in general?
Yeah, to Miami. To Miami specifically.
Maybe I'll go in the middle and say 5. Like, I don't see it being super likely, in my opinion. Like, it just seems like the package that they have can just be taken over by a lot of these teams. Like, there's teams that he didn't mention that have better packages, but I think the team that he did mention in the Suns have a better package if they choose to use it. Like, the question is the DeAndre Ayton piece, but I'll go with like half. That's why I went with 5, because there's always that element of saying that you just said about them being ready, prepared for this days ago. Like, they're always prepared for these things. They're prepared for these dominoes to fall. This is what they wait for. This is what they always seem to do, that there's always that chance. But I don't know. Like, I still come back to it. And I think it was just reported from somewhere. I think there was a quote that said the Heat are a more likely landing spot for Donovan Mitchell and have furnished a trade offer to the Utah Jazz, which is kind of what we were talking about before. But that's the thing that's much higher on my scale if you're to ask 1 to 10. Like, the Kevin Durant thing's kind of, I guess, in the middle. But the Donovan Mitchell thing, it just seems like that's much more likely, I guess, than the KD thing.
What you got, Alex? You look like you got something.
Yeah.
Because I was reading the quote that Brady was referencing at the same time that he was reading it, and it's the other part that he left out there is, quote, Fat Joe told me he is close to Mitchell and that Mitchell's dream is playing for Miami, not his hometown Knicks. The source is Fat Joe, man.
I didn't click the link.
He's a huge.
Listen,
it's
Fat
done.
Joe,
Fat Joe said it.
Fellow New Yorican, so we out here. Alex, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think this KD thing is actually going to happen?
I was gonna say go to me last because I was texting Adam, but he hasn't replied in time. So I guess 10 being the most likely, I'll say 4. I was gonna say 5, but that feels too down the middle, so I'll say 4. I mean, it feels like they're the second place team, but also the Suns, even though they're the favorite and might have the best package from the two teams. Like I said, it's a lot of obstacles they got to get through to make a sign and trade happen with Aiden. They got to also, like I said, because of the base year compensation. I don't even think I mentioned that, but the base year compensation for a DeAndre Ayton signing trade, he would count for half of his first year deal. So they would have to throw in more money to make it work. I'm not sure the exact figure, but it's just a lot of things going on, a lot of layers. So even though the Suns seem like the favorite right now, like I don't know that they actually get it done. So I'll put the Heat in second place, and I'll say 4 out of 10 for now.
Tony, you were holding up a 3.
Yeah, I think it's any trade partner is a 2 because it's Miami. They get into the room with anybody. And then I think you give them one more point because they were mentioned in the trade. What you got? You look like you got something else, Alex. Go ahead.
Adam said 5.
I was going to also say 5. I think it's not
50-50, really?
No, I mean, yeah.
They were mentioned in the tweet, so I get it. But teams like Philadelphia has assets and Tobias. You know what I mean? Like there's I know, but I'm just saying if you're another team and you're looking, is Assorted Whites or Tobias Harris the better package? And this is kind of where there's other teams that have assets like picks in the 2024 draft that everybody really values that we don't really have.
Yeah.
Okay. Why does this always happen to me though? Why is it?
It's
That's
always
my
you,
fucking
Tony.
thing. Why is it always me, man? Bro, I'm out here. I'm a good man. I pay my taxes. I raise my daughter. I'm in God's light. Like this is.
Get out, Manscaped.
Yeah. I'm not gonna do my ad read for that.
Please don't. We're already demonetized.
Yeah. We already know. No, the monetization's still here. We good. Look, I think it's a 5, but that's right now. Ask me in a couple of days, we'll see. With Phoenix, I saw a couple comments being like, "Oh, isn't Tyler Hero better than DeAndre Ayton?" And I think, look, there's a discussion to be had in terms of the shot creation, and maybe you wouldn't want to pay a center as much as you'd want to pay DeAndre Ayton versus Tyler Hero. But I think that the reason why the Phoenix package is better is because you can also add Mikal Bridges, and you have like other players who you can throw in that are better than Duncan Robinson, for example. Both teams have picks. They probably use around the same amount. I don't know. Somebody said Muffler Talk. See, JQ, he knows what it is. Yeah, so that's where I think I'm at with the Kevin Durant thing. But to Brady's point, Donovan Mitchell, I think I'm closer to like a 7 or an 8 in terms of whether how realistic I think that is. I think that, to me, I'm surprised if they don't actually pull that trade off at some point between now and February. But ultimately, we'll see. I think they should do it in the summer. Just get this shit over with, you know? All right, let's go to a couple other questions before we go because I really need to pee. All right, Justin Cordero says, if you had to guess the opening day starting lineup right now, what it would be?
Give it to me.
Tony, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. I think Depot looks great after training camp. All right. And I don't think he gets signed and traded. So I think it's Kyle, Depot, Jimmy, Marcus Morris, and Bam Adebayo. If I'm being extremely realistic and I'm just thinking that the Donovan Mitchell trade doesn't happen, I think those are the 5. And then you can put Tyler in there over Depot if you want. But I think that's realistically, in my mind, what I'm looking at.
Okay. So you have Kyle, Depot, Jimmy, Marcus Morris, Bam. Alex.
I'm sorry. Did you just say my name? I lied for like 2 seconds.
Yes.
What realistic starting lineup for opening night for the Miami Heat you think is going to be what? The first 5?
Last night, the basement, shout out to them. They did a space on Twitter, and they asked this question too to end the show. And I said Morris was going to be their starting big. I kept Strus in the starting lineup, assuming Hero would be back, and 50-50 on Depot. I still think Depot is going to be a bench piece until he shows me otherwise. Not me specifically, but Spo. I just think I don't think Spo is going to get to that point in the beginning of the season, but who knows? If he does, that would mean he absolutely excelled in training camp. I would not be upset with that at all because there's no way Spo would throw him into that starting spot if he didn't win that in training camp. So that would definitely be a good sign as far as his progress. And I'm just glad he's back. So yeah, I think I had Morris, and now that was before knowing that they were in on KD, that Kyrie might be available again. So those are the types of guys. But Brunson has agreed to the Knicks, so that part is out of the way now. I was kind of toying with Brunson and Morris as kind of the two guys there. So that part is out now. So I'm gonna stick with Morris. Just for now. I don't want to get my expectations too high. I don't want to jinx it. I'm just gonna say Morris.
Brady?
Yeah, I'll say for one thing, you brought up Brunson. I saw something where it said the Knicks finals odds before the move were plus 10,000. The Knicks finals odds after this move were plus 10,000. That pretty much summed everything up.
I saw that too.
But I'll say in terms of the Heat, if I had to guess right now, I would say Lowry, Hero, Jimmy, John Collins, and Bam. That's where I immediately go. Like I think if Hero's on the roster, I really do believe he's starting. And not just because he said he thinks he should be a starter. I think he will be a starter. And I think in terms of if they do land John Collins, let's say they're able to make that move in the Duncan trade and you're able to get John Collins back, I think you're more in need of Tyler Hero than Max Strus if you have John Collins. You need a shot creator that can feed the rollers and Bam and John Collins. You can alternate them and find different ways to run offense. So if Hero's on the roster, especially in that sense, I think he's starting. And I also feel like if I just had to guess right now, I just feel like John Collins is the 1-4 out there that is a viable starter for, other than Kevin Durant. I know that we're discussing him as a possible starting for, but John Collins feels like the guy. And I'll be totally truthful. I was totally skeptical about John Collins, the fit. Like I've been skeptical about the John Collins fit for a while, specifically with Bam. Like I understand the fact that he could shoot the three and he's actually shot it well. But they just operate in so many of the same spots, like inside the arc. Like both of them like to get into those mid-post post-ups and find ways. I know the one thing everybody talks about him lacking is kind of playmaking on the move off the roll, which is something actually Bam's really good at in terms of just comparing the two. But there's just elements of this where they do operate in the same spots. But give Spo and this Heat system, John Collins, a movement offense, everything together, put him out there, allow Tyler to create, run those pick and rolls. Like, talking about the things Tyler didn't do well in the playoffs we did earlier, something he did really well was the Tyler Bam pick and roll won them a couple games in this playoff run. Like they were just spamming it, specifically before Embiid came back in that Philly series. Like it was really working. Give him two true roll threats like that. If you're going to roll and totally bet on the Tyler Hero internal improvement, it just feels like the move to me. But other than that, I could have said the Donovan Mitchell thing because, like we were saying before, it could have been potential. But that's just my gut of realistic, I guess, starting lineup.
Look, this man, Rob Sports, said Depot, Hero, Jimmy, Jovic, and Bam. That motherfucker plays 2K. He plays way too much 2K. It's a 2K lineup right there. Offensive excellence right
so
there.
So all the Heat Twitter, though.
That's
true. That's true.
I'm thinking of my lineup, and I want to say this because I've really got a piece, so we got to end the string. Lowry, Mitchell, Butler, Bam at the 5. I don't know who the 4 is. I don't know if it's Jovic. Maybe it's Jovic.
It would be Caleb or Jovic at that point.
Not Caleb. I don't want to see Caleb play too many minutes at the 4. I think that's part of why.
Then you might want to go positionless and say Yurtsevin. Then
could you still get Crowder in that?
I was going to say. So that's what I was thinking, Brady. Is there a way you could still get Crowder?
If it's Crowder and Caleb coming back before we go, if it's Crowder and Caleb coming back next year at the 4 position, are we okay? Are we happy?
I don't think many are, but I think you feel a little bit better if Donovan Mitchell's the guy that's at the 2 in that instance. Like if it's not Donovan Mitchell at the 2, you feel terrible about it. If Donovan Mitchell's at the 2 and you're saying you still have Jay Crowder at the 4, I still think there's some iffiness. But the way to get Jay Crowder is through sign and trade. So I think you could still try to pull it off. And I know there's mutual interest there.
Right. Let's say they don't, and there's a marginal move for a guard, right? Just somebody, I don't know who's out there for guard right now, but there's a marginal move for the guard, and then they go Jay and Caleb at 4, Alex.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I was with Brady. He tweeted out that it would be cool to have Jay Crowder as a backup 4. I think it would be pretty disappointing for him to be kind of the one move in your rotation for the whole offseason, especially after losing PJ. Like, I think if you're talking about PJ with Crowder, I'm not mad at it, man. Again, I'm a PJ guy, so I think just having two different options there. Jay's a little bit of a better shooter. I wouldn't mind him back. I just think it would be cool if you can get him along with another 4 guy who you have potentially, a little bit of a tier higher, like a Barnes or Marcus Morris or John Collins, like we've been talking about. I think guys who can give you a little bit more offensively, even though Jay Crowder had a nice offensive season while he was here, just to give him credit. I think Jay and Caleb being your front court rotation would be very disappointing. You got so much smaller. And I just think like it's not the time to be doing that. I think you got to get like two-way versatility with size. And that's why I thought PJ was such a great fit for this team. And we saw the cons with playing PJ too much, right? So although I wanted PJ back and still being a big part of this rotation, my whole thing was having that counterbalance of a potentially a 4 who can shoot the ball, space the floor better, so that teams like the Celtics can't just have Robert Williams cheat off on the corners and collapse on the paint and make everything hard for the Heat on their actions. So I just think getting Crowder by himself is not enough, unless you're talking about, like Brady said, you get another guy along with that, and Crowder is like the patchwork move. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. It feels like the Jay Crowder thing is still going to be something that ends up happening for the Heat. I just don't know how, because I don't think the Duncan is going to the Suns.
We have an update on Fat Joe Gate.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, NBA Central tweeted this out. We'll start there. Miami Heat are more likely land a spot for Donovan Mitchell, blah, 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 blah. Per Chris Blash, Christian Whitfield, Daily News. Fat Joe told me he's close to Mitchell and that Mitchell's dream is playing for Miami, not his hometown Knicks. Fat Joe quote tweeted somebody saying Fat Joe in quotes. And then actual Fat Joe said, Fat Joe never said this.
Oh, my.
With the cap emoji. Go back, Tony.
No, I'm actually heated. I'm actually heated right now.
Fat Joe never said
we couldn't even have that. Just a rumor.
I was laughing so hard I knocked my camera off my computer.
Unbelievable.
I don't think that will be the reason why they wind up with Donovan Mitchell. But I will circle to this. Sean Rochester from the Biscayne Bay Brewing account did ask.
I want to see this.
This was a poll. You got to look at the Fat Joe tweet. This is a poll. Look for the NFT of the ball guy that looks like Fat Joe.
That's right.
It has been reported. This is from the Biscayne Bay Brewing account. Sean posted this in one of our chats, or a bunch of our chats. It has been reported that Miami is actively pursuing 2 whales, Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant. Which would you prefer actually land in Miami? I'm going to direct that also to the comments section. If I told you had to wait for Kevin Durant, would you want to wait for Kevin Durant, or would you just want to get Donovan Mitchell right now? Because it's something that we've touched on a couple of times throughout the show. For me, it's like, if I know I can get Mitchell right now, I'm taking Mitchell right now. Sorry, somebody else can get Durant later on. Tony, what do you think?
If the other team wasn't Phoenix, if it was a team in the East, I would be concerned. But since he's going out west, most likely, give me Mitchell right now. I like the fit better. I have to use less assets. I don't pigeonhole my team going into the future past Kevin's contract. Give me Mitchell.
Using less is important. Using less to get him, I feel like, is important. Brady?
Yeah, I said earlier, like, I feel like if Mitchell's sitting there, you go and get Mitchell. Like, it's a major risk. Like, even when we just did the thing with our scales, like, if you're saying who would you rather land in Miami, Kevin Durant or Donovan Mitchell, you pick Kevin Durant all day. But it's like, it's more of the odds of getting Kevin Durant. Like, if Donovan Mitchell breaks away, like, you're sitting comfortably in order to get Donovan Mitchell, where in terms of Kevin Durant, it's like you're kind of trying to play catch up and trying to find the assets that you're throwing away, where if all Mitchell has to do is break away, you have the assets to get him. And he's probably, even though Fat Joe isn't the source, like, he's going to want to go and play in Miami. Like, that's where he's going to want to play. So, no, I'd go Mitchell. And I wanted to just add in real quickly, because when Alex was talking about Crowder, my thing with Crowder is that you want Jay Crowder to not be Jay Crowder of 2020. You want Jay Crowder to be Andre Iguodala of 2020. Like, you want him being the bench piece to kind of add on to the 4 instead of actually being the Jay Crowder that was kind of out there in the bubble.
And that deal that Leif was throwing around on Twitter as an example, which interested me a little bit, is kind of like a backup option to help replenish the floor, where it's like you trade Crowder and you can get back. I mean, I'm sorry, you trade Duncan, you can get back Crowder and Torrey Craig. So it's like you're getting two guys at the position for one. I could see why that's an interesting deal, specifically with how limited they are if they're really avoiding the hard cap. But that's what you're talking about there. Crowder will be coming in to be Crowder, not Iguodala, in that deal. So I think that's like a cool backup option, if everything else falls. Like if something like that went through, wow, Barnes, Morris, Collins, all these guys are still out there. The Durant and Kyrie stuff didn't happen. I think it would be disappointing.
Alfredo, put Alfredo's comment. Well, R.I.P. Heavy D, but this is funny.
You want me to reach out to Uncle Luke? Uncle Luke might have a comment on free agency right now.
All right, we're at 8:00. I think we're good. Look,
but the Bucks re-signed Javon Carter. Well, what's your guys' reaction? One by one. No.
Did that really happen?
Hey, look, the Bucks. My reaction right there is the Bucks are running that shit back. Everybody's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had a good.
They're
team.
done.
We're at the point where Anthony Gill. I'm getting alerts about Anthony Gill signing a 2-year deal with the Washington Wizards. So,
right.
On that note,
what are they doing? What are they doing?
Pat's asleep.
Somebody wake him up, please.
Look, you're gonna get. Hey,
listen though.
Floor.
Does he know Durant's out there?
JaVale McGee signed $320. Miami could have had JaVale McGee. That's nuts.
Oh my God! All right, we're not doing this. Follow everybody you see here. Everybody you see here, you're gonna hear from us. You're gonna hear some 5 on the Floors and some other YouTube streams throughout the week and the rest of free agency and the summer. So be locked in. Thank y'all for watching, donating, supporting, and we'll be back very, very soon. Take us out, Alejandro.